people a lot on our plate before this. This meeting is being broadcast on local TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local TV channels and on the internet. Couple of announcements, not on here, but the Apple Harvest road race is next Sunday, so there will be a few street closures during the middle of the day on next Sunday, and also the dinner beforehand will be Saturday evening, October 5th.
In the annex.
In the annex.
You can buy tickets at the door.
The work on the Break Hill water tank, it was scheduled to begin today. Does anyone know if that happened?
No, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, okay. Upcoming events in the, by the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, the Smart Growth Summit. People with planning interests or conservation interests, will be on October 29th. A regional summit about how water can strengthen or undermine the Merrimack Valley's development and quality of life. There are still some committee openings for West Newbury boards and committees that can be, those can be found on the West Newbury Board of Selectmen webpage. And the FY20 Senior Tax Work-Off Program is still available. Interested residents should contact Teresa at the Council on Aging. Our first order of business is a request for installing signage within the public rights of way for the East Coast Greenway. And
You, Dave?
yeah.
You mind him coming up?
Yeah. So Dave, just state your name and
Before you do that, though, sir, you need to hit the push button,
the little push and so
and it'll go to green.
There you go.
And speak into the microphone, please.
Thank you for inviting me here. My name is David Reed. I'm from the south. I'm from Topsfield, and I am here as one of the people who's working on the Greenway project. And as you may know, it's the Border to Boston Trail is connecting Salisbury, Newburyport, Newbury and West Newbury down into Georgetown, Boxford, Topsfield, et cetera. And on the interim on-road project, we're trying to put signs so that prevents people from getting lost on the local roads. And we've been signing Massachusetts, so we understand that Angus has been helping with location of the signs. And I'm here to answer any questions for it. The East Coast Greenway is a sister to the Appalachian Trail, but one that's bikeable and ADA accessible.
So often it does go on roads that...
Correct. It goes on roads until the trail is built. Like right now, there's construction in Salisbury connecting it where the trail ends up at Bundock Road up to the New Hampshire border. And in the south, there's a project starting at Georgetown and Boxford. The one along Scotland Road through Newbury is not slated on the tip, I think, until FY22. So this is a way to connect those dots on a temporary basis. But temporary.
I guess that what I was driving at. So is there, if the town goes to the effort to put the signs up, is it, how temporary is temporary?
Yeah, that's.
So we don't want to go to be honest, I wouldn't want the town to go to this effort and then a year and a half from now we gotta take them down.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think this trail building work, as we've all learned, is great therapy for the fanatical optimist because it takes so long. I wouldn't expect the trail to be built for the next 5 years. It's not even on the tip, and it's taking longer in Massachusetts. And we could also take them down if that's helpful to approving them as volunteers. I'm a volunteer, I'm not I work in oncology.
So what kind of, I read some of your materials. In New England, is this a theoretical thing, or are people actually actually using the trails now? Are people, biking to Rhode Island, or is it just, we'd like to, and maybe 5 years from now we will, or is it actually happening?
It's happening now, actually. It's a through rider. It's interesting, the statistics, the whole 3,000-mile trail from the Canadian border to Key West just passed the 33% point, but between Portland, Maine, and New Haven, Connecticut, which is 400 miles, that just passed 50% completion. So it's slow. We apply for grants mostly to advocate for it and get it done.
Can I just speak for having, used little bits of it here and there. If I recall correctly, there's some down by Bradley Palmer.
Yeah.
So I've
From, correct, from Topsfield Center where I live, the trail goes 8.5 miles through Wenham, Danvers to Lowell Street and Peabody. Then it picks up again and goes through Peabody into Salem. Then it goes to Marblehead. Swampscott's working on their section. So it's not a linear straight line. It goes back and forth. We try to get people off the roads and on the safest roads we can.
Any further questions?
No, I'm good.
So with the, I guess my questions are about the nuts and bolts of it and the dollars and cents of it. So if we decide to go ahead with this, the town would be responsible for the having the signs made or put up, or how does this usually work?
Yeah, it varies by town. I mean, we can apply for grants to pay for the purchase of the signs if that's helpful. There's not that much. About 2/3 of the towns buy them. That way they control the process. About 1/3 they're mailed up from the corporate headquarters in Durham, North Carolina.
I think in the packet that we have here that there was pricing. It was under it should be in the packet as well, and it's like $185 worth of signs, if I remember right, to do.
As well, but the installation is the significant part.
Right, I would say that's true. The labor is a significant part. Yeah, or putting them up, when the DPW has time, and in some places, if they get busy, they don't have much time.
What's typically used for sign posts?
The U-posts that are driven into the ground at select location, usually there's a sign before one turn and a confirmatory sign after the turn, right, yeah.
So they're driven in?
Correct,
They're
yeah.
not, don't have, I guess you still have to dig safe, but you don't have to, Wayne, you're nodding, so, okay.
Right.
But so you don't have to dig a hole, you don't have to pour concrete, or you just drive in.
Oh, yeah, you just drive the post in.
Yeah, okay.
In the state of Massachusetts, they don't allow you to attach them to a stop sign because they think that's sign overload or for that, so they can't be attached. Sometimes there is a pole in that location, but stop signs are not allowed.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to ask Wayne, do you have any problem with the proposed roads that would be used? Do you think those are appropriate ones, or?
Yeah, that's fine, the route's fine.
Okay, actually, I should speak.
The route's fine, was the answer.
So when the request came in, I put it through both police and DPW, and they both were fine as to the route that was shown and the location of the proposed signs. DPW director did estimate that the total cost of both the signs and the posts would be about $1,155 plus the labor that they say that, if we were to actually do the work, so all in with materials and labor would be about $1,700. So my recommendation to the board would be, I think, to approve the installation of the signs within the right-of-way, because I think the locations they proposed have all checked out with public safety and DPW. The reason I listed the request for DPW to install them separately is that's a separate request. And, you know, in talking with Wayne, that's really gonna have a lot to do with, you know, I think we could do it eventually. I would not want to make a commitment as to when, because as you know, there's a very substantial workload with DPW, but Wayne had indicated that depending on weather conditions over the winter, if it's a mild winter, if the ground hasn't frozen, there might be times that the crew would otherwise be as busy as they are during the, you know, the spring, summer, and fall season, when we really don't have a lot of extra capacity, so.
There's no deadline for this.
Mr. Chairman. So, if I see this correctly, there are 11 signs that you would like.
Yeah, that's what we recommend based on the Google Earth turns. That's kind of how we do it.
And when you say temporary, what does that mean?
Yeah,
When you
temporary,
say-
that, I don't mean to imply that it's like you say, a year and a half. It would be when the trail is built, we call it a better word than temporary, and I misspoke, is interim route. Because when the trails are built, you have to get people from one trail to the next, and so, you know,
So
people
some
are
roads
on.
might even, you might use those roads.
Correct, yeah.
So when you, that's one thing I wanted to ask. When you say trail's going to be built,
Yeah.
that means something.
Yeah, that means,
That means like a trail. So
Correct, yeah.
I understand this is something with no timetable and whatever.
right.
What trail do you would see in West Newbury? That
I
would
don't-
then-
I don't-
This
yeah.
would be the interim route.
Yeah.
What would be the final route?
I think to get around the Merrimack River now, we have to go through West Newbury. I think once the trail is built through Newbury on Scotland Road, then we would go down through into Georgetown. Into Georgetown. That way.
And then get over the river? through
Yeah, 'cause there's an
get o- then
abandoned-
Get over the river through Groveland?
Temporarily, we would go through Groveland now, West Newbury and Groveland.
I'm thinking about bridges.
Yeah.
The only way you're gonna get over the Merrimack is a Rocks Village.
Yeah.
There's only a few.
Right.
95, then you have the chain bridges and all those up in Newburyport.
Right.
And then you have the Rocks Village Bridge, and then you have the bridge in Groveland.
The plan to get over the Merrimack River is when they replace the Route 1 bridge. You know, there's that iron bridge that's stuck in place between Newburyport and Salisbury over the Merrimack River.
Correct.
When they replace, this is a long, 20-year plan.
That trail rail, I think they call it, up in that area.
Yeah, rail trail. But the plan would be because the sailboats have to go under the new bridge, they can't put the old train bridge
Right.
at that level.
Correct.
They would cantilever the trail off of the new bridge, but again, that's not even on the drawing board, because that Route 1 bridge hasn't been up there that long.
You're talking about the Gillis, what's called the Gillis Bridge, and isn't that called the Gillis Bridge in Newburyport?
I am not,
Yeah, yeah, so
it's
that's-
from where Michael's is
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Newburyport, the
okay.
restaurant
Yeah,
over.
yeah, the one that runs,
Yeah.
there's a railroad bridge just.
So until we get that, so it's really not temporary, it's a long-range plan. Just to give a sense, the organization has been around 30 years, and we've only got a third of it done, because it's primarily, we have to go really town by town, but we're making progress. It took 75 years to build the Appalachian Trail, and this one, which will be, and these aren't, waves of cyclists come through. 99% of the people who use these trails are people walking their dog on it, or the local.
Okay. Fine.
Those are great questions. I'm so, we'll, happy to produce the signs, but we need your permission to
Well,
put them
trails
up.
mean
and-
something in this town because we have a good trail network. So when
Yeah.
you say trails, build trails, I think
Yeah.
people are picturing
Right.
like you're going through forests and
Yeah.
then, digging, that type of thing.
This would be more like a trail, like going through Newburyport, and if you go up to Salisbury, the pretty one going through the marsh, that trail, there's actually bulldozers up there now extending it from the northern part of Salisbury up to the New Hampshire border.
Okay.
So,
what's the?
actually, I guess, I have a motion, I just have one, it's kind of one comment, is that, I mean, I know a couple of other people in town who are actively, sort of following progress of the East Coast Greenway and, are pretty much on top of what's going on. And we might, I don't know how it would work from Wayne's standpoint, but there might actually be some willingness
Volunteers?
for volunteer, for, some of the labor to be volunteer labor. I don't know what it takes to drive the posts in. I mean, overall, it's not a very complicated assembly.
No, but, yes, but then it has to be done right, so it stays up, and then who maintains them when the snowplows hit them by accident?
Yeah, we had a combined thing in Topsfield.
Yeah.
Roxbury, we put some up with some volunteers, but the DPW wanted to be very involved, so.
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
teacher hour out there.
Right,
Mhm.
right, yeah. So I guess when we get to that point, maybe we'll talk with Wayne, and I'm assuming that driving them in, I mean, the road bed probably is pretty free of big boulders, and
Yeah,
so it's probably not too difficult to drive stuff
Right,
in.
the machine
2 or
that
3
they
feet, yeah.
use and any signs that they put up, it's the same standard process. It's
Yeah.
just a U thing.
Yeah.
And other signs can be attached. They don't have to be just East Coast Greenway sign. If you need a sign for a school or something like that, or a park.
For all the road races in town, could be the
So, we don't need to get into the weeds, Angus, about who we're buying them from and all that kind of stuff, and make sure you have a place where we buy them from? Obviously, they have to be,
Yeah, Angus has been in touch with Christine
Okay,
Feeney, who's
fine.
our person, and I've been CC'd on all the emails, which you guys have been very responsive. This is one of the,
so we're gonna take the responsibility of buying them, I don't know if we are or not, but you said it would be a cost around $1,700 to be able to buy them, the poles, and,
$185.
no,
the
total.
whole thing
Hun-
installation.
seven- I think you mentioned a figure of $1,700 to be able to buy the 11 signs and the poles and the hardware and be able to install them, an estimate.
That includes the labor cost, yeah, with the post, Wayne estimated about $1,150. So my recommendation, we authorize the installation, but as to the DPW doing the work, and funding it, that would be subject to the director. So if he finds the money in the budget, or if there's some other account, in town that could be used for this, and he brings forward a proposal, great, but the second part of what I would recommend isn't a firm commitment to do it, it's to look at it, but the authorization's there. So if Wayne comes back in a couple of months and says there's just not the opportunity to do it, he could either build that into next year's operating budget.
It might have to be next year.
The opportunity, money-wise.
Right. Okay.
And labor-wise.
That's fair. We're, a volunteer advocacy organization for the most part, and there's no timeline, but this is just how we have to roll with having limited jurisdiction over this.
It took Rome hundreds of years. to
Yeah,
get the application.
right, yeah. We're just
He's
trying
been
to.
waiting all night for that quote, I don't know if
Okay,
you realize it, so you should acknowledge it at least, please, for him.
Yeah.
But I think if the authorization's there, it gives people a target to work toward, and then if the organization comes back and says, we'd like it to happen sooner, and there's volunteers and so forth.
And we just got a grant and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I make a
Yeah.
motion that we authorize Wayne to, what?
well, it would be to authorize East Coast Greenway to install signage based on the proposed locations in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second matter of DPW providing labor and materials would be subject to whether the director feels that can be absorbed. And if it can't, then he could either bring that back for,
Okay.
a
Next year.
budget, or perhaps there's another funding source, or there's volunteers, but it basically gives people a target to aim to.
Okay, so moved. That's a lot easier, right? I mean,
I'm clear on.
everybody clear on that?
I'll second.
And I think that's consistent with what the email I. had
Yes,
to you,
correct,
which is-
yeah.
which I put in the
Yeah.
board's packet.
Further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Great outfit.
Have a
Yeah,
trip
thank
back
you.
down south.
Okay.
I'm hoping I can ride it back. I'm hoping I can ride it before I'm no longer able to ride.
Actually, I will say, I've seen these signs up in Maine, I've seen them down in Connecticut, with my
never seen one. I haven't been on a bike in a while. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Next item is discussion of some special town meeting articles. Let's talk about the DPW articles first. The first one is a request for related to some hazardous trees.
Mr. Chairman, so
Yes.
obviously, these are not all the articles that we have for our special town meeting.
No.
Is there a reason why we're taking we're taking just some of them out tonight to talk about them, because they're more, I don't know. I would just,
Because we
I might be
have-
curious.
Just because we have, these are sort of less, they're relatively cut and dry. We have most of the information about them now, that's all.
Are we now taking votes or approval by the selectmen, or are we just getting more?
Just getting the information.
Perfect. Thank you.
So the first one that is regarding high hazard trees, if you notice, I've done it per the memo I submitted. I did an audit on a long list of high hazard trees, and at that time, I tried to get an overall picture on what we're looking at, because I didn't want to keep coming back every 6 months asking for more funds to take on all these trees. So I just did a townwide audit, and we came up with a large number of trees that needed to be at least planned for removal over the next many years, to have a plan to remove high hazard trees. We're not required to take down high hazard trees overnight. We just have to have a plan to take them down. And I was proposing a 5-year plan, which puts us to requesting for the first year $50,000 in special town meeting funds. That on top of the $20,000 that we set aside for trees in the existing fund line we have now, gives us around $70,000 times 5 gets me up to $350,000, which allows me to take down trees that are on the list right now. This doesn't account for 50 more trees that become high hazard trees over the next 5 years, but I think this is a huge step in the right direction. At least have these trees on schedule to plan to at least attack a realistic schedule, where $20,000 a year is not realistic to handle the number of trees that we identified as high hazard.
So these are, just so that I understand and everyone else understands it, so these are trees that are in the, on town land or in the town right of way, as opposed to, on very near, but on someone else, but on someone's private property. So these are only on the town right of way, is that correct?
That's correct. These are only on the right of way. These do not include open fields, does not include open space, does not include playground, parks. These are high hazard trees at the edge of the road.
Okay.
But I think what Dave was saying was they're specifically in the town right away too.
That's
They're not, 2 feet over, past the stone wall and somebody's,
The
yeah.
stone- I wish everybody had a stone wall. to
Right,
help you figure
right,
out what's
right.
public and what's private. I take out a map of me and I'm trying to measure down a ditch on
Yeah.
what's public, what's private. I'm pretty confident that it's
Yeah.
public trees.
Yeah.
Without paying $8,000 survey to tell me. No one's run out of their house to stop me to say, please don't take down that dead tree.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I like cleaning up after it every.
I believe they're mostly public, so I'm
Yeah.
not gonna use them, plan on using. But again, I'm only going in like 10 or 12 feet. If the tree is 50 feet in and I think it's still on land, I'm trying to figure out where it's falling. I don't consider that a high hazard. I don't think it's gonna hit a line or fall onto the public right of way.
Do you think this will, in addition to obviously road safety in storms falling in the roads, will this have any effect on our power outages in West Newbury? Because some other towns have fewer power outages than we do, and perhaps some of those states, I don't know.
Yeah, this will definitely, I'll go out on a limb and say it
Good,
will.
like-
Well, most of our services, if you're not in a new development or overhead. So we're gonna have more outages in most locations, because a lot of locations have their services underground. Ours are not underground, all ours are in the trees. So you get rid of 250 trees that are dying, and, you know, you could probably say a third of these trees are beside a power line, if not more than that. I mean, it definitely has to reduce the number of trees falling onto power lines.
So how do you prioritize which ones you're gonna take the first round, the first year?
Well, the first year is easy because I got some real dead trees that are hollow in the middle, so I have to prioritize that, even if they're not on a power line, because I'm afraid they're gonna fall into the street. It's year 3 and 4 and 5, you just start, you're putting them into like 3 tiers. Tier 1's easy. Tier 2's even semi-easy. Tier 3 is gonna be 250 trees, so it might just be zones where I get a bang for my buck by just having a tree company work in 4 or 5 streets, and maybe we'll get a good cost on that if they don't have to travel all over town.
When do you think you would actually begin?
They like to do work in the winter because they usually lay off their tree crews in the winter time, so if we could offer them 3 weeks, 4 weeks of work during the winter, that's huge for cost-wise for
So
us.
from a timing standpoint, doing it now, at special town meeting is.
Oh, starting December 10th or something like that, because they let them go before Christmas, and if we could keep them going through the holidays, they'll keep working at a good price, so.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any further questions about that? Oh, Brian?
You need to push that little thing so it turns green. Good. No, just once.
Brian Murphy. I'm just curious, I mean, I've never come across a tree company that really doesn't mind cutting a tree down. We have scenic roads bylaw in town. It just strikes me that maybe we're being a little too aggressive in planning for trees that seemingly are healthy, and we're gonna put them on a list for a tree company to cut down when they have no work in the winter. Could you answer that, please?
Absolutely. They're not healthy. I'll release the list, anybody can look at them, and you're welcome to walk around, and I mark them all too, so there's no confusion which trees. If I give you the list, and you're welcome to go around, these are not healthy trees, I'm not looking for work. I mean, I could definitely find probably 1,000 high-hazard trees in town, but I did not go look for them, I looked for the obvious ones. And the best time to look at these trees is July and August, when you see them die back in the trees, where half the tree is dead. Those will be the third tier, but we have probably 100 dead trees standing right now, between 75 to 100 dead trees, and you probably find 300 if you kept really looking really hard, if you started going further in. So this is far from an aggressive point of going after trees, because I bet we all could drive around, and you could probably find 800 trees that should come down. As a tree warden, my main goal is to try to save trees, not to remove them, but there's a time where trees have outlived their lives, and I think we're at that point where we haven't maintained them consistently. We're at the point where we have to catch up to the condition of these trees where they're at now.
Yeah, I think the point, Brian, that Wayne had made was that by doing it in the winter, we're gonna actually achieve some savings on trees that have already been identified as not being healthy trees.
Sure. So obviously you took over from your predecessor who was here 20 years. If you could characterize how he kind of passed this issue off to you, what did he say in terms of what the town had been doing about trees?
Well, we've been more of a reactive, where we get the call and we go out and we look at it when somebody calls it in. Gary's been really well with driving around trying to be proactive, and he left me 13 pages of trees before he left the door, and he handed it to me and said, "Good luck, we never got around to this, it's gonna cost you a lot of money to do it." So I went out and looked at those trees that Gary gave me, plus resident calls that came in, and I did the evaluation based on the list and what I could observe. I did not walk down every single street in town and walk every street. I drove every street and I looked at the obvious ones. But I can tell you, if we decided to walk down every single street in town at a slow pace, that number could easily be 700 to 1,000 trees. I was not seeking dead trees. I was looking for the obvious ones that needed attention.
What happens to the wood when it's gets cut down? Is that part of the price? Is that part, I think there's some residents in town that if the tree gets cut down in front of their house, even though it's on a public way, they feel that they should be first dibs at that wood or whomever. What happens to that wood?
If they contact us ahead of time, we'll leave it behind, and it's first come, first served. Most of the stuff will be chipped and brought to DPW facility, and it's put in a very large pile for the public to come and grab and use. We have taken down trees 2 phases since I've been here, and very few, but some people come out and say, "Hey, I'd love to take the 8-inch wide limbs," you know, they don't want the whole tree, they just
Yeah,
want
the
ones
easy
that
ones to
burn.
split,
They
yeah.
want the easy ones, and we do our best to work with them, even on the side of the road. I did have somebody ask me that from this great idea, when they got great thoughts, and then I leave them 13 lots out there, and they're like.
And they
"Oh,
realize what the work is
that
really,
much."
yeah.
So, but we would ship most of it.
Okay, people might ask.
And leave it at the yard, and we get a better price if we accept it ourselves and not have them truck it out to wherever they truck it out to, so.
Okay.
We'll accept it.
Wayne, what about Main Street? Is there, you do trees there, or just it's all the state?
I'm not touching anything on Main Street because the public right of way is not a public right of way. And there's probably 12 to 14 trees on Main Street that are dead right now. Especially as you get past Pipe Stave, start working your way to Newburyport, there's some dead trees. But we don't own any of the public right of ways, all state.
So do we contact them or try to?
We could, again, I wasn't seeking to take that, I didn't want to be the aggressive tree warden looking to thin out the town. I was looking for the obvious ones that were under our jurisdiction, but I was trying not to be this aggressive anti-tree guy, because again, as a tree warden, my main goal is to save trees and to protect trees, and I don't want to be known as the person who cleared out all the trees in town.
Okay.
Okay. What's up?
Will there be a, okay, so, just so you have a list, in case people have a question. You have a list, and then the list, and you have the trees identified, in case people want to make comments, because this isn't, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be as easy as you say it's going to be. There's a lot of people who like the scenic trees and around town, so we just want to make sure that it's all identified, so people have a good understanding of what's going on before it starts.
Maybe we could have the list on the website or
We
something.
can.
Yeah.
We can definitely put that.
I don't want to rethink it too much, but I just don't want to have a meeting in February with a full house saying, what have we
A
done?
million people dressed with bark on.
I have received around 6 or 7 calls right after I marked them all, and they were urgent, and I needed to call them back, and I go, geez, what did I do? And I had 7 people say, what about my tree, you missed it.
Oh,
It wasn't, please save it. They knew, because I pretty much marked the obvious ones
Okay.
out there, so
good.
that's
Thank
the
you.
ones that are marked.
Okay,
Yep.
so, next one, Wayne, you want to tell us briefly about, adding a salter to the
Mhm.
pickup?
So currently, we have 3 full-size dump trucks that you need a CDL license to drive, to run the salter on. We have some employees that don't have the CDL, including myself, who like the opportunity to actually be able to salt a smaller parking lot, the public safety, town offices, town hall, and right now, we use a very large dump truck to come out here and salt these, and we throw the salt like 50 feet in the air, and we hit every car as we come in here. We could turn it down best we can, but it's still, at the end of the day, we're using a full-size dump truck to salt a small parking lot. And then we get calls out in the middle of the night to salt spot sand, small areas. We take out a monster truck to salt for 8 minutes. Where the opportunity of taking out a smaller truck to hit a couple of hills, easy to drive those hills, it'll at least give us around 5 or 6 people that could salt instead of 3 people that could salt. So it opens up to a lot of people who could salt in DPW. And it's going to go in existence.
Is it to take this device off on
An hour.
no, so it doesn't like permanently handicap the truck?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
We'd probably leave it on because we have 3 smaller trucks, and we'd probably leave it on all winter to help put some weight on one of the dump trucks. But
It could come off within an hour to clean.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Library dehumidifiers.
So we've been contacted by the library this past spring about air quality, so we're familiar with it, and we try to act as fast as we can, because they were concerned about mold and fresh air in the building. So we did some remedies, we reached out to the state to ask them to do an air quality check, and we did a bunch of, we believe, improvements. We cleaned we had mold tests done, we cleaned the rugs, we cleaned the ductwork, we installed 2 inline dehumidifiers into the building, and the air is much better now than it was before, but we still have a little bit more work to go. We don't have as many bad days there, but we still have a few bad days because the dehumidifiers only went on 2 out of the 4 zones. So we're getting complaints out of the other 2 zones, and it's still musty and humid there. So I would like to fund those 2 other areas for our dehumidifiers. and try to get the whole building. We funded all the other improvements pretty much on existing article and some are operating line, but we're pretty much draining ourselves with this unexpected repair to the library, improvements to the library. The state complimented us on our dehumidifier idea. He's going to use it now when he goes to other towns and asks if they have one, because he thinks it's a great idea when you're talking about air quality. And again, it sounds expensive here, but if it resolves the issue, it's a huge, I guess, employee breathing.
Are they, do they require like a lot of daily or weekly emptying of the
Not at all.
trays, or how does that work?
And these are awesome. They actually empty into the existing drainage system. So that's
Okay.
why we went with it. We did not want to buy 17 portable dehumidifiers and put them all over the library. People have to empty, plug them in. These are in the line, you don't see them. They're in the basement. Taking the air out, putting it into a hole into the basement. And get
Yeah, they're inline because it's forced hot air, they're actually in the system itself.
Okay.
So when you say into the existing drainage system, the draining, it's not going into the septic system, it's going just to outside,
It's
past the
going
perimeter
outside.
of the building, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. With things like this, we're, because we've gone through the green communities process, and it's good to understand what the increased energy demand is gonna be. And I mean, I think what you're doing is a great thing, and it's what we ought to do, but if it was possible to compile a list of or just keep track of a list of the new equipment, so that when we see the energy demand, on an annual basis, we do an annual report for green communities, and we look at our energy usage and trends. And if we see a trend with the library going up, and we can point to these and say, this is the reason why, and here's why we did it, then it just makes it a lot easier to explain and to, staying within that program.
I mean, I'm hoping it's gonna be a wash at the end of the day. I hope it's not gonna go up. I'm thinking by us controlling the environment, if we keep turning the heat up or turning it down, put the AC up,
Yep.
try to deal with the
Okay,
humidity.
yeah,
We're not helping
yeah,
it.
right,
All we're
right,
doing
right,
is
yeah, yeah, so
something-
conceivably, it'll even drop, that would be ideal.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
hoping,
yeah,
but-
yeah,
So I think once we get hopefully all four installed, we can look at the bills from February of 2019 to the bills of February 2020.
great, yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah.
if it's a wash, we could say we did improvements to the air quality without cost. on
So,
energy.
okay, great. So, with anything like this, though, where there are new energy demanding devices installed, if we could have a listing of that, then that would go into the database where we track our energy usage. And it's just good background information to have. Then we can look back and say, oh, this is what happened in 2019, and we understand why. And, great, thanks.
Mr. Chairman? One thing I do want to say, just so people are hearing this library mold and all that kind of stuff, and then they get nervous, that you contacted the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, their air quality program, and they scheduled an on-site inspection of the library and the grounds. And they reviewed the mold report and confirmed the building had no major concerns, and the actions were already put in motion to correct the course, so things
He actually
wouldn't happen.
quoted it was probably one of the cleanest buildings he's ever inspected.
I just wanted to get that out there, because if
Yeah,
somebody's,
people should know that.
people saying that, and then we have kids' programs, and then all of a sudden, they don't hear anything
They
but
just hear the
mold.
M word.
Yeah,
And
so,
the test confirmed that they could not even find.
Yep.
Really, they saw little source.
Okay.
And that we replaced, and that was.
Great, that's great.
good, thank you.
And another, I'm not finding it.
Town buildings operating
I know,
costs.
but I'm just trying to find the piece of paper. So, just want to, reimburse the town buildings account a little, Wayne?
Yes, for the, couple of things that we have purchased already, I think it was, $2,600 that we purchased for, I believe it was the rug cleaning and, the testing, I believe,
At the library.
at the library, still the same place.
So these were unanticipated expenses?
Yeah, this whole, was not at all
Yeah.
planned. I mean,
This came up in early July, and it was presented as a, very high urgency, situation from the library, and, so we got right on top of it. I don't know, as a matter of
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Wayne.
thank you.
The Board of Health is looking for some additional funds for, monitoring of the landfill. Evening, Bob, evening, Paul. How's it going?
Evening, gentlemen.
I think as you know, we have a gas issue with the old landfill. And we told you folks at the last annual town meeting that it was going to be a further expense, and we had no idea what that amount was going to be. And this is what we're here for tonight, is to refund, fund what we have to do by the price, for the issue.
And, do you think that, midstream, they will, change it even more? Or do you think this is pretty good for the moment?
I would say we're pretty good for the moment. There's two articles. The first article, 11,500, is for maintenance, monitoring of the landfill. When we did the budget in April, we had done quarterly monitoring of the gas migration probes. And in the corrective action plan by the state, we got to do it 12 times a year, monthly. So there's another 8 testing frequencies that we didn't account. So that's where the 11,500 is coming from for. And the other article.
Can we talk about that for 1 second?
Yes.
Before we move on to the other article? So is that, to get a, so is that to get a benchmark, or is that going forward? So is that amount for testing next year, then, rather than quarterly, will that then, your budget reflect that next year? How long is that monthly, it seems, obviously 12 a year, monthly monitoring gonna have to happen?
We'll be doing it next year.
Yes, next year, but we will have to do it on the 12 times a year for that. But I did ask the DEP if we can reduce that to every 2 months, and their response was that once we install this cutoff trench, which was for the other article, $66,000, and get some testing data beyond that, they didn't specify how many months, but some point after we get the trench in, if the data shows that we can back off, then we should be able to back off on the monthly testing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the other,
The other article for the $66,000, we do have to install a cutoff or interceptor trench, because there is some methane being produced, obviously, from the decomposition of the landfill products, and that's kind of floating around, and it's migrating underneath, beyond the property line, underneath Middle Street. We know that because we do have monitoring probes, that's what we tested on every month. It's venting better now that it's dry and groundwater is lower than it does in the wintertime when the ground's cold and everything's just kind of finding its path. So that's what the purpose of the cutoff trench is so instead of gas migrating underneath Mill Street, they'll hit this cutoff trench and be vented to the surface like the rest of the vents in the landfill.
I'll just tell you this briefly. I met someone at a party in Rockport, and we were talking about stuff, and they had done dredging in Rockport. They were making their own harbor deeper. And he told me that they used the clay there and the only place that had any need of it was West Newbury's landfill. And he had said that when the DEP tested it at the time, this particular clay from Rockport Harbor was 5 times as impermeable. In other words, it was very good at capping a landfill because it was so
Dense?
hard for gas to escape from it, that way more than is used on most landfills, and so it was really desirous, and I said, I think you caused us a problem, because it's not letting the methane out.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? So when you talked about the land being wet and it might cause a problem, so are we having any problems with that beaver dam down there?
No, basically it's just a natural progression and movement of the groundwater itself along the edge of the road. Right now, those monitoring probes, they're usually about 10 feet deep below the surface.
Mhm.
Sometimes, right now, the last testing we did, they're all dry, no visible standing water within the column. But during the winter time, some of those probes, we had standing water at 2 feet. So well as the temperature,
Mhm.
the weather conditions allowing it to, vent, moving around now and venting through because there's currently 3 gas vents on top of the landfill. We test those, quarterly also. So we can have a trend as to when they're venting better and when they're not. And if they're venting good, then the methane's not going across the street as much. But when they're not venting, we get, it's venting underneath the road.
Mhm. Do we have a program to make sure that Beaver Dam doesn't happen like it did before and then flood our landfill?
Yeah, I monitor that all the time. We do have an, operating budget, some funds in there to, take care of the beavers that need to, but we try to hold back on trapping them unless we really have to.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I was just curious, is it kind of unusual, I mean, that landfill was closed, what, 25 years, or at least 25 years ago, right?
Correct.
In the 80s, okay, yeah, so, maybe close to, well, 35, maybe. I thought that landfills generally, I'm just curious, but I thought landfills generally got through the majority of their decomposition in like, 15 years or so. Is it unusual that a landfill's still producing that much gas at 35 years?
Not that I've heard. I've heard that we are kind of right, maybe at the peak of it now.
Yeah,
But we've only really been testing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
We never tested the methane with the probes because, the state never said we had to. But when we're testing the groundwater, at one point we had some levels of 1,4-dioxane that came back hot. It got into the newspaper. Someone saw it, reported it to the state. The state got a hold of us, and that kind of drove the installation of the gas migration probes. So I think the gas has probably always been there, migrating underneath Middle Street, receding
Yeah.
back and forth, but it wasn't until we put the gas probes in a year and a half ago that, we identified that, there was a problem.
okay, thanks.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning board.
Planning board, zoning amendment changes?
Yes.
Hello there, how are you? I'm joined with Rick Bridges and Tim Cronin of the planning board. I'm Brian Murphy. I'm talking about the zoning article request. Do you have specific questions, or?
Well, I guess, the definition ones, I guess my general question was, were these, new changes to mass general laws that or they've been in existence in a long time and you just wanted to make them coincide, or these aren't new by the state, are they?
No. Some of these have, been on our to-do list, and we had other things that we thought were a higher priority, in terms of adjusting definitions, bringing them up to more current status, or simply reflecting that mass general law, really, that can change, and we should have reference in our bylaws, reflecting that, and
Okay.
sending people to mass general laws.
When, in other words, if they changed, it sort of reflects, it would automatically reflect in your law.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that then we have to go back in and change our specific language. And then some of the other definition changes were really removing some archaic language.
Do one of you have any questions?
I didn't have anything specific, kind of
Well,
read through it, thought it made sense.
Brian, anything that you think stands out to, as far, I didn't see anything that seemed
No, there
unreasonable,
was nothing that we would consider controversial. I think we passed the list by town council. He suggested we delete one item, and we did that in our hearing 2 weeks ago. And that's reflected in your.
Okay, and what we have here,
the
yeah.
adjustment is reflected here.
Glenn, John, anything?
No.
Great, that was,
Okay.
that was simple.
Good, thank you.
And you can hang out, because if you wanna talk about the
I have to get my other
public
folder.
safety side, okay.
If you don't mind. Well, first, again, thank you for having us here to talk about the public safety side. I do want to thank Chairman Archibald, who attended a August 20th planning board meeting and listened to us, and we listened to him, and then he invited us to come and talk to you. So I have a brief statement just to recap some dates and the topic, and then what we would like to see happen, and for your consideration. And that doesn't have to be tonight, but perhaps something that you would want to discuss amongst yourselves. In 2017, the town approved the new signage bylaw, and we've been working on that for several years, and there was a lot of input with you folks and the inspector. In April 2018, a permit was issued for the public safety complex sign. We didn't know of it, nor should we have really at that time. The selectmen reviewed the sign, as far as we can tell, at the two public hearings in August and September of 2018. In January of 2019, several board members and a couple members of the public noticed the sign was turned on, and the visual aspect of it. And several of us wrote some comments to our town planner, who, by the way, couldn't be here tonight, it was a family matter. We discussed the sign at a couple of meetings, and then Ann Bardine sent out an email to you and the town manager indicating our concerns about the sign, and it's not meeting the criteria as established in the signage bylaw. Later in January, the town planner asked town council for advice about the sign, and the response was that he could not provide that advice to us because he represented the building inspector on that matter, and we would have to seek other counsel. In February of 2019, we became aware that a legal opinion was issued by town council advising that the sign is not considered a sign within the context of the zoning bylaw, and that it fell under informational devices required by public agencies. Later that month, we sent another letter to the Board of Selectmen. We disagreed with town council's opinion and explained why, and asked that the sign be brought into compliance, or that the town seek and receive relief from the zoning board of appeals, which would be a normal avenue for someone who had a sign they wanted constructed. We took a hiatus at that point from any correspondence because of the school matter before the town. We thought that was a very important item, and unfortunately that passed. So in June, we had requested that, actually, I'm sorry, in June, the town council issued a legal opinion to the town manager that the planning board needs Board of Selectmen approval to employ special counsel. June 18th, his chair sent a letter to the selectmen indicating that we would like the opinion of outside counsel and sought your opinion, your approval to employ KP Law to provide an opinion on the sign. Our understanding is that the town manager related verbally that the selectmen denied the request. And then we did invite Chairman Archibald, as I said, to our August meeting to talk about the sign. So, where we are, the entire board has a concern about this sign and no access to legal counsel. We feel that it's a public sign authorized, erected, and maintained by the town or other public agencies. And this is a sign that should not be called out as being exempt. The exemption that town council referenced on informational devices was intended to cover one-way stop signs, detour signs, etc., things of that sort. With no access to legal counsel, at this juncture, we're seeking hopefully a reconsideration of this matter before you. We think the sign violates the internal illumination and it exceeds its maximum height and area. So we would like you to meet the requirements of the signs bylaw, the signs in the residential district, or seek relief from the ZBA of the requirements after the fact, as it's a non-conforming sign, in our opinion.
Well, just so you know, early on in the process, I specifically asked if this sign was gonna be okay, and we got an opinion from the building inspector to the effect that it was. So, I'm not the building inspector, so he's in charge of enforcement for.
He's a chief compliance officer.
Exactly, so, and there were several meetings where we discussed, I'm thinking of 3 or 4 before, meetings with, at the time, Chief Reed and,
Dan Cena.
and Sergeant Cena, both not quick run-overs. We discussed the verbiage on the sign, the size of the sign. In fact, one of my recommendations was I wanted it smaller, and they made it smaller. There was a lot of time for public input, and these were on scheduled meetings. They weren't done in secret. There was no attempt to, put a fast one by.
I agree with it.
It was completely above.
Yes.
There was very little comment about the sign from anybody other than members of the board, to be honest.
Actually, they actually reached out to make sure they got as much input as they possibly could, because they didn't even have to come to us as the Board of Selectmen. Art did not even have to come to us to put that sign up. But he wanted to make sure that there was as much dialogue and as much conversation about the sign. And we probably had, you look back, we probably had 4 or 5 meetings about that sign, just not only 2.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding all the minutes of which ones but more than 2 by far. I'm gonna say 4 meetings before the sign, before there's even the final, go ahead to start construction on it.
So that doesn't mean if it's right or wrong or even gonna change your mind, but I just wanna make sure that at least we understand what the process was, that just like the library, we can't approve, their sign. They have the right, the Board of Library Trustees has the right to be able to put their, obviously if it's going to conform with building and stuff. The same as the chief does with the building and the grounds. So he
On
didn't.
the public safety complex.
Correct.
Well, but
So I just wanted, I just want to make sure of that.
I hear you. I think the other board members are puzzled that the building inspector, after being involved in the drafting and crafting of the signage bylaw, and we've never heard of a comment from him, why he came to a conclusion that he could issue a permit for that sign. We don't allow internally illuminated signs in this town.
Well, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You did it for the bank, and you did it for the, and the school has, and the school has one. And the school has one. I know, but I just want to make sure when we say we don't allow them, that was just a blanket statement. We don't allow illuminated signs, so I just wanted to define them more. Yes, we do. We have them at the bank, and we have them at the school.
In a public hearing about the bank's construction
Mhm.
on that ATM sign.
I'm not saying it's wrong or right, I'm just saying that we do, because people will question that. I just want to make sure that we, so we do allow them. We have them at the bank, and we have them at the school.
So if this is an informational sign, shouldn't it then only, if one collapses on that as the approval mechanism, shouldn't it only have information about public safety matters? Why does it have information about everything else that's going on in town? It has nothing to do with.
I think that's kind of a rhetorical question, isn't
No, I
it?
don't either. I think that's the approval that has been given, that it's an informational sign for the agency where it's erected.
I guess we're gonna have to, whatever.
Well,
I mean,
and that's why we wanted to seek an outside opinion, because we think there's an error here.
okay, so I just wanna, just so everybody understands, because I was gonna ask this question, Mr. Chairman, do you mind? So you say it's an illegal sign because of the height
It's the height and the internal illumination.
and the internal illumination. But if it was lower and it only had public safety information on it, you would not mind it.
Whether I mind it or not, that's.
Oh, no, mine, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, that's okay. If you would agree with it as a planning board.
The approval mechanism that you and or town council have put forward.
I think you're cutting hairs with the informational thing. I mean, if everybody, I don't think it defines as an,
You
yeah.
made it a public sign, and the public sign.
Yeah, we made it a public sign, and it has public information.
But the police department wants to be a good neighbor too. They wanna, put out the.
And the people who donated the sign wanted it to be a good
I
neighbor.
don't,
I mean, it was,
very
just,
nice.
so if anybody doesn't realize, this was donated
Absolutely.
as a charitable thing in the memory of Donald and his son Fowler, who, they own the food
by
mart.
the Fowler Foundation.
I think as far as the application of the bylaw, that the funding mechanism is really irrelevant.
Well, I know, but you look at things in a narrow scope, and we're kinda looking at the big picture. This was something that people came to us, a charitable foundation, wanted to do something good for the town. They wanted to be able to recognize the two Fowlers, and this is absolutely what they wanted to do. And they wanted to have a plaque on the sign, and they wanted something that this is what they wanted, was a sign. And sometimes, these are people that are trying to do something good for the town. They weren't trying to, tear the town down. And so, are you gonna say, no, we don't want your gift?
Well,
just
that-
not-
well, that's- well,
Maybe some would say that.
Well, I wanna define that too.
You to be the person to say that.
Well, I wanna define that too. We just didn't, hold on for one,
Hearing in a public meeting.
we had
public
plenty,
meetings.
hold on, Brian.
No one-
I wanna define that too. We just didn't say yes. I mean, we did our due diligence. We got legal counsel. We checked with the building inspector. We just didn't say, yes, you put up, make it look like Vegas. We had multiple meetings. I bet they came back with at least 3 iterations of that sign.
With design
And bringing it with
changes.
down changes, and then we listened to people after it was up. We don't have colors on it. We have dimmed it at night. We have a timer on it now. Even your illuminated signs that on the bank, they don't have a timer on it. They're illuminated all night long. We shut that off at nighttime. I'm not sure if they do it at the school or not. I think they do. But we did our homework to begin with, just so we just wouldn't put it up. And then we listened to the residents when it became something new. And I can understand all of a sudden an illuminated sign in West Newbury. But we listened to people. We've toned it down. We've toned everything down. And quite honestly, I've only heard positive things about that. Forget about if it was a donation. You're right. It doesn't really matter. But I mean, it adds to it. Okay, it does add to it, but not for these purposes, right? And I understand that, and I can appreciate that, right? But we did do our due diligence. I mean, it's not like we just did it willy-nilly.
No,
I just want you to make sure that.
So what,
Yeah.
but, so, we're kind of at an impasse here. The way other boards and committees that seek outside counsel do have to get permission of the Board of Selectmen. That's just the way it's set up. I have a problem with spending money to have another board and committee then, going to cause more commotion in the town. And I know one of your board members, who I spoke to, said we should put the sign inside the building. So if that's what people on the planning board think, then there isn't going to be any compromise. That isn't compromise.
That's one member's opinion.
I know, but so what are we trying to accomplish? You wanna have the sign taken down.
No, I want the process followed.
But we did follow the process.
We asked.
But that's where I think.
We have our chief compliance officer saying, okay, he gave the permit, signed off on the permit, and then when it was questioned, we made sure.
And I don't know what the solution is to that, and maybe there is no solution. I mean, we wanted to air our concern about a process that we didn't think was followed, and it may have been an error in interpreting by the building inspector, I'm not sure by who.
But there wouldn't be, because the only way we would do the reason why you don't want it, because we don't allow illuminated signs. But it's exempt, okay, and the height. It's exempt because it's an informational sign, and that's what he was doing his basis on. So I guess the definition is if it's informational or not. And then your response to that was, well, it's kind of willy-nilly in that respect. If it's going to be information, it's on the public safety land, it should be only that. Okay, I'm just trying to get, I'm trying to get an understanding.
The premise that was allowed, it should only be doing messages about don't speed on 113 or something. It's a information by a public agency. You'd have had a better argument in that case by putting it in front of this building.
Which is coming in the spring.
Well, maybe.
Mr. Chairman, John Dodge just had his hand up. I didn't know if he saw you.
Thank you. I'm John Dodge, Chairman of the Open Space Committee, and we unanimously in August supported the Planning Board's efforts to bring this sign into compliance. And it's part of our mission to maintain the rural character of the town, which the town seems to overwhelmingly want. And that sign bylaw certainly helps achieve that goal. So that's speaking officially. But I want to speak as a citizen. I remember a couple years ago, some poor farmer had a small sandwich board down at Bachelor Street and 113. And there was a little bit of a flap over it. And it was pointing to his farm stand down the street, or her farm stand. And what does it say when the biggest signs in town are on this building, Pentucket High School, the Public Safety Complex, and the library? And with the possible exception of Long Hill Orchard. It's sort of the town gets what it wants, but if you're a citizen, you're going to be grilled and your feet are going to be held to the fire that you adhere to this bylaw. What is the point of having this bylaw? You can slip it in and say it's public safety information. That seems like a pretty weak argument. I mean, there's everything on there. Flag football signups. Congratulations, Bicentennial Committee. Yeah. And there's a real sort of potpourri of messages on that board. People have told me when they drive by it, they can't even read it. I mean, they have to stop, and you can argue that it's a distraction. It's the safety it may be a safety issue. So anyway, we do support the planning board and why they're here tonight, and we hope you give them a good hearing. So thank you.
I was trying to get from here to there why why you guys were supporting it, but now I understand now. I got out the bylaw and read it and like why are you? But I understand now.
Okay.
I understand.
I simply want you to hear us, and I thank you for hearing us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to put you on the spot. But
No,
we
I understand.
want you to understand we're concerned about adherence to process.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have anything else?
And just one, I have to make a comment about, I don't want to go on too much, but John, that was a whole different process. We weren't giving that person did get their sign put up.
I know they did.
Okay, but, you know, that's a different precedence in a whole, that's not apples to apples, because then we actually had, at that time, probably 5 or 6, maybe 7, who just wanted to leave their A-frame signs everywhere in town, and then if they blow down Main Street, it's like, okay, who's gonna take care of them? Oh, I don't know, well, what if you're at work? So it was a little bit more than
Okay, let's
that.
not get off on
I,
that
but I didn't
subject.
want us to say that we're, yeah, but I didn't, it kinda, you made a thing like we're not like helping the farmers and stuff in town.
No,
and
no, I never
Okay,
said
I just
that.
wanted to
I
make
just say it sends a bad message when the
I got it.
town
I un-
gets all the big signs
I
and other
understand.
people's feet are held to the fire.
I
That's all I'm
understand.
saying.
I know you got a ton of stuff on your agenda.
Mhm.
I'm just glad you heard us,
Mhm.
and I appreciate your time.
No, I'm glad you came in, because I have a little bit different perspective on it than I did before you came in, and I guess that's all you can ask.
I would add that there are a lot of people that like the sign and wanna have their message put on the sign. It's
Yeah,
not,
no, I am
it's
very
not
positive.
lacking
I have
for
very
attention,
positive.
because people
Mhm.
actually, everybody doesn't hate the sign.
How many requests, Angus, do you have to put on that site? Just a guess, a week?
3 or 4 a week.
To change it, and that's just people asking, and that doesn't have anything to do with our town wanting to give out messages about the water bills or that kind of stuff.
It varies, but I think it's heavily utilized. People, the challenge is to get the messaging so it fits, because you can't fit a lot of words before it,
And what type of things have we done to try to accommodate the neighbors and the requests that have come in when it was illuminated, and it kind of did look like Vegas?
Well, it was first installed, as this board knows, it had the default click it or ticket, which was just the template out of the box.
They're perfect for the police department.
Yeah, so that was the messaging right out of the box before either Sergeant Cena or I had been trained on how to program the sign.
Mhm.
So we turned it off initially, and then once we got trained on it, which didn't take long, we set the timer so that it, at least the timer adheres to the illumination standards in the zoning bylaw, because, notwithstanding Chairman Murphy's comment, the bylaw does, as you know, allow for illuminated signs in certain circumstances, and it prescribes shut off and turn on times. So we set it to that, turns off and turns on.
Yeah, how come the bank doesn't turn off and turn on under your laws?
The rationale was that the automated teller was a 24-hour service. So they wanted to direct people to the correct lane to use that instead of the
Okay.
If I could just finish.
Yep, sorry.
So we changed the illumination, when it first was turned on, it was at the brightest, so we toned it down quite a bit. And also we basically don't use any color. We did make an exception to that just in the last week or so. As you know, we had triple E detected, and West Nile virus detected just across the river in Haverhill. I felt that justified something that was colored to get people's attention, but with that public safety exception, we've only used white text.
And we've turned down the top lights too, haven't we? The ones that illuminate? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, but what the green communities is next? How long is that discussion gonna be? Thanks, Phil. No, you can keep that. Positive. I have it in electronic form. No, keep it. No, keep it, Brian. Honestly, it's just gonna go in my desk after I leave here, so. How long is the green communities thing gonna be? We do have somebody.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so he wants to go home, okay?
Go ahead, I just gotta get a different one.
Okay.
Here. Would you mind?
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much.
Here. I'm just kidding. No, I'm good.
How are you?
How you doing, Liz?
Thanks. Liz Callahan, Energy Advisory Committee. Just wanted to come tonight for a couple of items related to the Green Communities Grant. The Green Communities Grant round is coming up again. Usually the grant application is due sometime in March. And the committee.
Hey, should we wait for Archie to get back, maybe? Because, just, so, sorry, Liz, but it probably makes sense for everybody to be here. 'Cause we're gonna be
I think you're
looking-
just
we're
giving
gonna
us
be-
the laying down the,
We decided to wait for you, Archie.
Green Communities Grant's coming up for renewal again. That's what you missed.
Okay.
So the advisory committee has been starting to discuss whether we want to consider applying for a grant again. We're still in the consideration stage, and if so, what energy efficiency or renewable energy items we might want to pursue. So far, we have two potential projects, and we want to seek your guidance on how to proceed from here. So the two are looking at streetlight replacement with LED lamps, and the other is pursuing money for electric vehicle charging station. And we need to do a little research on both projects before we can kind of put the proposals together and decide which of these, if any, we want to pursue this year. With respect to the streetlight replacement, that's kind of a multi-step project, and on that, we've done some background discussion, including speaking with the town of Amesbury, just at our last meeting, on their experience related to it. The model is usually that the town will buy back the streetlights from National Grid, and then we will get the grant money to replace the lamps, and then we would have the responsibility for maintaining them over time, but we'd be getting the energy savings from that. We'd also be getting some cost savings, and we'd be getting better quality lighting out of it. We're not sure whether that model works for our town. We heard some things in speaking with Amesbury that we want to look into further, but just wanted to make you aware that that's one of the potential projects that we're looking into.
Can I, before you go on to the other?
Yeah, I have some questions about that.
Can I just ask Wayne, do we have the kind of equipment to maintain those guys if we have them? We need like a bucket and stuff, right? Or
Cherry picker?
I've done, I'll ship.
Sure.
I was involved with the Cambridge one many moons ago, and recently Newbury for converted theirs, but it is, you purchase the lights. From my own personal experience, you need a lot of lights to start saving money, because you need to maintain them. Now, you can have a contract to maintain them. You don't have to maintain them in-house. You can pay a contract to maintain them.
does that wipe out all the savings, or no?
Well, we don't have a lot of lights in town.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask
I
the
think we have
question.
134 or something like that, yeah.
I mean, I can't comment on the Newburyport savings, because they have an internal electrician who has a full-time job there who's full out. But the first round was tough, because we had a failure rate that was pretty high.
What does that mean?
Expected. If you install 800 something bulbs, you're gonna lose 60 of them just because of.
Just because.
Really? Oh.
But we knew that, they told us
Oh.
that up front, but then that meant the electrician couldn't do electrical work, he had to be able to replace the lamps around town. And there's a big issue with how you have to fuse the lights. It was okay when National Grid, and this one I don't mind being on public record, it was okay if they weren't fused when National Grid owned them, but when they converted them to the town, we had to have them fused for $180 a piece,
Yeah.
which is not, we didn't know that when we were buying them until we bought them, and we went to go buy the lights, and tell National Grid what we're doing, they said, well, you have to fuse them. We're like, okay, great, we'll fuse them. Find out that we cost $180.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, National Grid does it with zip cord, but they want you to do it to
So
code.
it was very painful, but in the long run, they'll save money, but I don't think the savings was as soon as they projected the savings to come.
What's the break-even analysis of, I mean, if you have 134, you gotta,
I don't know what I'm doing the math, I was.
It might be hard to figure that out.
So what you described is similar to what we heard from Amesbury.
Yeah, okay.
They probably have 10 times the number of lamps that we have. So we're not sure this model of purchasing makes sense. We're just kind of looking into it further. One thing we considered is whether or not we could get a grant to replace the bulbs and National Grid continue to own them. We don't know if they'd offer that or not, but that's one of the options we want to look into.
I have a question on that. So when you say the model is, we buy the whole thing from them,
Yes.
for how much? Or do they kind of,
Actually,
Yeah, so they have a depreciated value for the inventory that's currently up on the pole. And if I remember right, the value of all the lamps in town was something under $10,000, $8,000. I don't remember.
They've been depreciated a lot.
Well,
I looked
right,
into it.
Right,
few
a
years
couple
ago,
of years ago, we asked National Grid to give us an inventory and the current value. And I don't have those numbers to the tip of my
But it
fingers,
was
but
surprisingly low.
yeah, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
They're not worth a whole lot at this point.
well, it's $10,000 for 134.
Which says something. I mean, this is, they pretty much wanna give them to you for a reason.
So,
They don't want them,
Right.
because
Right.
it comes with a maintenance.
now, they maintain them and they put the bulbs in them and all that kind of stuff at this point, and we just pay for the electricity.
Correct.
Well, it's actually a little messier than that. Yeah, and in fact, the numbers that we have, I'll just say, outright, I don't believe the numbers that we have are correct. And in terms of our actual costs,
You believe it's higher or lower?
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, there doesn't, it's
can't
not,
get there
it's
from
not,
here?
it's not clear that it's really correct, and that would take a little bit of digging into the accounts we have with National Grid to understand what accounts really are for street lighting, and that may be really clear, or it may not be really clear. And then understanding what the cost structure was. But, there's another way to look at it. Liz is on the Energy Committee, which, by the way, I am still too. And of course, we are concerned about cost. We're also concerned about our energy footprint. And so converting to, looking at it from a long term, LEDs are going to save a significant amount of energy. And I don't know exactly how the numbers will pan out.
You're here to ask to renew the Green Energies grant or to apply for specific grants for the streetlights and a charging station, or do those two fall under the umbrella of the Green Energies grant?
Well, first I just want to say that we're looking at possible projects, and the two that we identified as possible were the streetlight replacement and an electric vehicle charging station. So as we just discussed, there's a lot to the streetlight replacement, and we're not sure it makes sense, but we're in the process of kind of sorting through what all the questions are.
So
And the
c-
financing and the savings and what options are available to us. in terms
Can I just do kind of like a baseline clarification too? So there isn't like a green energy grant that we're redoing, or, so, we are acknowledged as a green community, meaning we've met a certain set of criteria. And so we're part of the program, and we keep track of our energy usage. And every couple of years, we're eligible, there is a grant round, what's referred to as a competitive grant round every year. But we can't apply for that grant round every single year because there are too many communities that are in the process. And so what they're doing now is having communities eligible every couple of years to participate in the grant program. So we're considering applying for a grant. We did not do it last year or the year before, and we're considering.
2017.
Okay. So we're considering, so this would be applying in 2020, in late February, early March is the application due date. And we would potentially be applying then for a Green Communities competitive grant. And it's competitive because a bunch of other communities are also applying. pretty much everybody gets something. The question is, you know, do you get everything you asked for, and did you ask for $500,000 or $100,000, you know? But
And you're thinking about applying for that grant, and do you have to state in that particular grant what your projects you're gonna be using it on? And you're saying the streetlights and the charging station?
I don't think we were thinking of doing both, we were thinking of doing
Either
one or the other,
Oh.
most likely. And so,
Which one's more sexy for them to say yes to?
I think they've said yes to both. I mean, both of those are kind of common projects that they've funded before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as we just discussed, the streetlight replacement is complicated, and there are a lot of pieces of information to pull together for that and see whether or not that makes sense for us.
I know the Energy Committee's been asking the selectmen for years to really think strongly about using some electric and/or whatever type of vehicles to replace our fleet on an ongoing basis, but it's pretty hard to do that if we don't have something to be able to charge those things with.
True.
So,
Yes.
it would be a lot, you know what I mean by that? So being able to get a grant for that, and then that could pave the way to us to start being serious about when we replace our fleet, to take a real hard look at getting some energy-saving vehicles.
Right, and on that particular project, we thought we could use some input, or at least some direction on where to go for additional input. If we were to look at an electric vehicle charging station, where in town would it make most sense to put that? I think some of the obvious locations is to put it here in the public safety complex.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, if it were to be used for one of the town vehicles at some point in the future. But there's also the possibility of putting it, for example, up at Pipe Stave, where you have a lot of people coming and going, especially on the weekends. So we've had some discussion about it, but I don't know if we want to be making the choice. We kind of want some guidance in terms of how to go about getting some additional input on that to put a proposal together.
the other thing to realize too is it might not be just one charging station. It might be appropriate to put a couple of different locations in. You know, perhaps it'd be something at the public safety complex, or something that could be shared, you know, that's focused on the public safety complex, but could be available to the public when it's
Mhm,
not,
definitely.
you know, or half available to the public when it's not being used for that purpose. Conceivably, there could be something at the library. Conceivably, there could be something that services a future, you know, a vehicle that, you know, in the future, there will probably be pickup trucks that would be applicable or appropriate for the, DPW. So perhaps there'd be a charging station up by the DPW that would also be available to people who were at the sports fields.
Mhm.
So, you know, we've talked about it and tried to think of locations where, you know, you have a primary mission that serves the town, but you have a secondary mission that is a public asset.
Mhm.
What it, in your, just looking into this, what are the ramifications of, I don't know, just dreaming this up, but someone uses the public, thing and messes up their vehicle, or can that happen?
I don't think, I don't
don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just saying-
I don't think that can happen. I mean, it's a standard interface, and there, you know, you put in a, I mean, the only cars that are gonna plug in are cars that are in.
But would we be
Liable.
some, well,
Is that what you're
but
looking
also-
for?
But also would be, somebody take advantage of it and say, well, I'm not gonna use my house, I'm just gonna go up to the.
Oh, for the bill.
Well, you can, but there are, you know, there's, I mean, I think the biggest player is a company called ChargePoint, and, you know, they have chargers. Many of the chargers that you see at locations are ChargePoint chargers, and you have I mean, I have a card. It's just a little card, and, you know, it reads the magnetic card and immediately goes to my account. So if you did that, whoever, you know, there would be a card that went, if there was a municipal
Okay,
vehicle,
okay.
the municipal vehicle would have.
Okay,
Right.
I didn't get that part of it, okay.
So I would be in favor of the chargers more than I would be the streetlights. The streetlight one seems a little bit too complicated than, personally. And then, other towns probably have done this already, and maybe not reinventing the wheel too much, as Archie always says, and maybe look at another town and see where they feel like they've gotten the most efficient places to put them. I know that towns are unique, but I would want it to be accessible for the town and for citizens also. That would be my take on it.
So it sounds like spend some time talking to other towns.
I would, just to see like, hey, yeah, we thought it would have been a great idea to put it at the library, but nobody uses it there because everybody's in and out, and a car being sat there to charge is kind of more of a pain in the neck. I don't know, I'm just making it up. Or, you know, having it at the public safety was a great idea because they have a nice parking lot. People who want to charge their car there is good because that also, too, is near a lot of ball fields and stuff. But Rick's point about having one at the DPW and having one down here would be a good idea. Yeah, having at least two. One up there and one down here.
Yeah.
We have one at the school, correct?
Well, there's one currently over at the high school, you know, middle
Yeah.
school. I guess it's at the district offices.
Yes, there's
right?
one there.
Right next to the offices, so maybe that.
The superintendent,
Yeah, yeah.
I think the superintendent
And-
negotiated that in his contract because he had an electric car.
And in the new school, there are gonna be 11 charging, I'm not sure if it's 11 dual charging stations or 11 total charging stations. So if it was 11 dual, it would then be 22.
Yep.
But they're going to be putting in, I'm pretty certain, based on having attended one of the school building committee meetings, that they're planning to put in extra additional capacity to make it easier to
Connect more.
at a later date, install more of the charging stations, because there's gonna be a transition to a lot more electric vehicles over the course of the next decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I was at the same meeting.
Right.
Yep, yep. Does it sound good?
Sounds good.
Gets-
It sounds like we should try to pursue multiple
Sites.
charging stations.
At least two.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Hey, Liz, we're doing the MVP a little bit later. We're gonna just update. I don't know if you want to,
What's that?
I was gonna do an update on the MVP.
Okay.
You do? Okay, all right, okay. See you later on.
Our next item is it's our candidate for the new town accountant business manager position. Good evening, nice to see you.
Good evening. Pleasure to be in front of you guys this evening.
Yeah, great.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would it be okay for Angus kind of to get us off on this and then, you know, just maybe say what's happened here and what the
Yeah.
process is, and then we could start, just to get us all up to speed?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, this will recap, I think, board largely knows, but I think it's the opportunity to bring the meeting. So, as you know, the town's been going through a significant transition over the last year and a half with the change in form of government. And when I was hired as town manager, the finance director position was done away with, which had been a full-time position for more than 30 years before I got here. So what I found pretty quickly is that the day-to-day finance responsibilities combined with manager responsibilities, as well as a significant backlog of issues, as well as some major issues in the last year, whether the school override, bicentennial, or all of the above. I figured out pretty quickly that we were really short-staffed in the finance operation. And so over the course of the last 16 months, I worked very closely with the board, and we changed about a half dozen job descriptions to really more thoroughly document what needs to get done and whose responsibility it is. We also made some significant changes in the layout of the offices, which were really very problematic from a day-to-day financial operations. So we've made a tremendous amount of progress. We've got a great team, and we work very closely with the outgoing town accountant, Lori Ziviak, over the course of several months, to basically look at some of the things that the finance director had done, In some cases, some things that really hadn't been done as regularly as they should have. And worked with her to broaden the position of town accountant to be what we came to as town accountant business manager. So within the revised job description, it's a much more substantial job description than town accountant, which in and of itself is a big job. Basically, well, like I said, it reflects a lot of what both the town accountant had taken on in practice, as well as looking ahead, and in particular, one of the areas that we felt and continue to feel the organization is most deficient kind of in terms of board structure is the personnel HR, because on top of being town manager and finance director, I'm also the HR director, and personnel matters take a huge amount of time. There's a lot of tripwires, there's a lot of cost and downside of doing things wrong. So I'd like to think we do things very well there, but it takes a lot of time. And everything that I'm doing in those categories is taken away from, you know, the town manager responsibility. So basically, there are a lot of changes. One of the areas which you saw in the last couple of weeks is the hire of a new assistant in the town manager and finance department. That's a newly created position that came out of a restructuring approved in the current year budget, so the board voted on it last spring, and we have extended an offer. We've got a new staff person, Jennifer Walsh, who's going to begin on October 21st, which is so terrific because that position is highly responsive to the needs that we have, but is also really customized to support the responsibilities of this town accountant business manager position, because obviously with town accountant having been a full-time job for many, many years, it wouldn't be reasonable or responsible, frankly, to simply add a whole bunch of responsibilities without adding some substantial support. So some of the changes that are built into this new system are things that, there are a lot of things that the town accountant over the years has been handling personally, like not just preparing the AP warrants and payroll warrants, but coding that all into the software and kind of taking it from soup to nuts, which in a larger organization, that's done by an assistant. So that's basically now with the assistant coming in, that's going to take a big chunk of work off this position to allow this position to focus on some of the higher level finance. So
Okay, I just wanted him to introduce your name. I'm sorry about that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
We've advertised the position broadly, both through the Mass Municipal Association as well as the Mass Municipal Accounting and Auditing Association. And Stephanie Frontera is, her application rose to the top of the list. We brought her in for an interview, and I was very impressed, and I brought her to you with a recommendation.
Good. Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to start. I have a tweet that you did back in 2007 that I'd like you to explain. See, now you feel better, and I really don't have that, right? Make you at ease a little bit. I noticed that you were...
It didn't exist then.
I know, that's why I wanted to check, just to make sure that you know I was kidding, that I did it far enough back. Hi, thanks for coming in. I looked over your resume, I'm very impressed. Talking to Angus, he's, he's very impressed by your experience and your willingness to work here in West Newbury. I noticed that you have some private and municipal work, and you started in the private sector, then you went to municipal. Tell me why and why you've chose the municipal route and not the private route.
Okay, when I graduated college many years ago, I always wanted that big corporate job, but I did not realize how much your work life is involved, so I would leave at 4 a.m. and I wouldn't get home until around 10 p.m. at night. I did that for about 9 years, and I was kind of just more like a number in the private sector. I wanted to kind of get that more small town feel, get into the state level, and really make a big difference. At State Street Bank and Trust, where I worked for many years, a lot of things were going overseas to cut back on cost. So I did auditing, but I had to work crazy hours where over in India, they were on a different schedule, so to be able to communicate back and forth.
Okay.
So I found stepping into the state system was a great opportunity. I felt more than just a number, and I was able to make a difference.
Okay.
Stuck with that.
Good. I'm going to come back, but
Okay. I guess, first thing is, you'd be going from a small town to a really small town, so is it,
City, I think, isn't Ipswich a city?
No, it's a.
no.
It's a town, is it?
Yeah. So, do you think that's good, or are there any feelings about that?
So I think it's actually a really wonderful opportunity. When I saw the job description, it really struck me. I like the fact that it's very collaborative between all the departments, and where West Newbury is very small, it's nice to kind of hone in, get really down into the details of everything and see how everything works. In Ipswich, where it's a little bit bigger, sometimes it's hard where you're dealing with so many people. It's very hard when you come to the table to kind of work things out, and as far as internal controls go, and keep everything underlined. So I thought that this is a really nice position. Coming from, I grew up in Wenham, which is a really small town as well, and I like that small knit community.
So are you still living down in the Wenham area, or where?
Yes, I
Yeah?
live in Essex currently.
Yeah.
I just moved about 4 months ago from
Okay.
Ipswich to Essex.
Okay, all right. So I guess it's not really a, you know, that, I
It's
mean, it's a
not,
difference, but another 20 minutes to get here as opposed to Ipswich. Yeah. Okay.
I really like the business manager role added on to this.
Yep.
It's, you know, it's nice to, I love to collaborate with other departments, multitask, and I've always loved to do that. Right now, I do that in Ipswich, but oftentimes, we're also dealing with the school system and the electric light department.
Okay.
So there's a lot of players, and oftentimes, it's very hard to have that one-on-one with different departments when there's so much going on.
Okay.
There'll still be a lot going on here, but I like where you can kind of hone in more on the details.
Okay.
So one thing Angus mentioned, and I think where we certainly need additional help on that is HR kinds of situations. So, an employee has a question about their health plan or that kind of thing. So you feel comfortable about doing those kinds of tasks in addition to the traditional accountant part?
Absolutely. So about 4 years ago, the payroll department used to be underneath the finance directorate in the town of Ipswich. And so we used to do a lot with the retirees as well as active employees. I used to work one-on-one with the payroll clerk and help her administer plans, all that, reconcile liability accounts. So not an issue.
Okay.
And to this day,
And
that's-
like, in some those kinds of questions, though, you would feel comfortable answering those for an employee, yeah? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, I don't have any real specific questions. That's, to go to to piggyback on Archie's question. I always thought it was a city, but who cares? That's a pretty big town compared to West Newbury, but your function's probably going to be increased here. So there are more lines of employees there because you have more employees. There's gonna be a lot more put on you, and so you feel comfortable with that? Because I made a mistake a long time ago when we had a finance director or whatever. I always thought, oh, that person's coming from a bigger town. It was actually a city. And I said, oh, great. But then when the person got here, because of, there's so many different people, because it's so big, you can't have one person doing everything. So, that person was very good at one thing, but then I just assumed that person would be able to do everything. But then that person couldn't. It had to almost be taught because we're a small town, the individuals have to take on a lot more functions than generally in a big town. Generally, you have an accountant that does this, you know what I mean by that? I don't know if I'm explaining as well as I should for a question, but you're gonna be taking on a lot more tasks, something that you haven't done before. You feel comfortable with that? Your workload?
I do. Currently in Ipswich, we're kind of understaffed as well. I'm used to, we cross-train everyone, so in the accounting department, yes, I do have an accounts payable clerk and then an assistant, but the difference there is we're a lot larger. So I hop in all the time. If one of my staff goes on vacation, I'm sitting there doing the AP warrant. As far as keeping segregation of duties, that's when we have someone else sign the warrant. It would be right for me to be entering invoices into the finance system, cutting the warrant and signing it. So that's what our auditor suggested, but Yeah, I hop all over, and I'm doing grant work, procurement, a little bit of everything, actually.
Okay.
Even though we are bigger, I do have a lot of responsibilities, but I love to be busy. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't have any more questions, and I think I've done my due diligence with talking to Angus. Obviously, there was a very formal interviewing process that was conducted by Angus, so I don't want you to think we're just asking it.
Oh, no.
So I've talked to him, I saw the questions, and, you know, I've talked extensively about, and he recommends you, so you wouldn't get to this point unless, you know, all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed, but I just wanted to, you know, obviously get to know you and make sure that we felt comfortable.
Yeah, it
So-
sounds like you've covered a pretty broad range already, you know, a broad range of responsibilities, so, you know, I'm thinking there are gonna be a few more added to the pile, you know, based on, because we're different, but, you know, different than Ipswich, but, it sounds like you're already pretty much up to speed on a broad range. That's good.
So if we're done, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, if we
Okay.
could. Frontiera, is that the proper pronunciation? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we have Angus Jennings enter into negotiations with Stephanie Frontiera for, what are we calling this?
Town accountant, business manager.
Town accountant, business manager position.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
None.
The only reason why we stumbled over the name of the position is because it's a new position.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I
New
just wanted
definition.
to, and I wanted to make sure, I didn't have it, you know, those motions have to be correct, I wanted to make sure, I knew it was town accountant, but I knew there was more to it, I wanted to make sure it was correct. So during discussion, so if it all works out well, when are you gonna, you have the ability to start, soon, later, what?
I have to give a minimum of 3 weeks' notice.
That's fair.
The finance director is out this week, so I'd like to do this the right way. And give
Yeah.
the
We can appreciate that,
I've
would,
worked there a long time.
we would expect the same here, so we wouldn't, I mean, we can appreciate that. I just was curious.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate the time this evening.
Great, thank you.
Okay, all,
Thank you. Further discussion?
mm-mm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, hopefully see you here in 3.5 weeks or so.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make it clear that we're talking about creating new positions and stuff, but ultimately, it's the same number of people. The job descriptions have been moved around somewhat, and it's
Right.
under the.
Budget that we already had.
Yeah, that was somewhat a misstatement by me, it's, yeah,
We're talking
yeah.
about creating new positions, and it sounds like.
It's just creating new job descriptions from positions that we've already have, but moving them around where the town manager kind of wants them,
Same number of people and under the.
the same budget.
The budget.
Yep. Okay.
Quick note, I received a text that only 2 of the mics, there's somebody, a couple people watching, only 2 of the mics, Glenn's and Rick's, are working right now, so Archie and the witness table.
Witness.
Where's the spotlight? And Angus's, and I can see Angus's is red, but that was.
Well, he keeps his red, so when he's,
Yeah.
so he doesn't get yelled at when he go home like I do by my wife saying, stop breathing into the mic. So only when he talks, he hits that one.
It's interesting though, because they're green.
It is green, but who knows?
It might be, is it working or just can't hear him?
Can't hear anything.
Are they home right now? Would they mind doing a test? Because I know I generally ask my wife to do that, and she's already in bed.
I usually yell into it, so. What's up? Let's see. Thank you. Review of the, car post CPC proposal and discussion of.
Funding?
financing Options. So, we're gonna, open-ended, complicated,
Well, it's not open-ended.
well, there's a million ways to finance it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the proposal of how
No,
to fix
no,
it. No, okay, yeah, because we have a specific plan. So-
I guess the first thing is, does the board, we have to decide this first, does the board want to, support going ahead with supporting the CP, you know, do we wanna present this to town meeting as something we wanna do? That's the first thing. And part two is, in which possible manner or multiple manners do we want to attempt to pay for it? If
You wanna start? You want me to
part
start?
A is good.
Well, I think we should. I think, well, we haven't even, it hasn't even got out of the CPA, the CPC yet, so we kind of, but I would like.
No, but
but I-
ultimately, we have.
As an
to-
individual, I would like to bring it forward to, it needs to be brought forward to the town for them to make the decision, and then let them make a decision, and then it lies where it lies. On the funding aspect of it, that aspect, we need to discuss and bring something, and I would actually, the multiple sources, I would say no to. We need to come up
You
with.
think we have to have one at town meeting?
I do, just
Okay.
to have some clarity, just to have, I don't know, some continuity, just to, hey, listen, this is, yes, you know, we want to present it with you, and after a long discussion with the Board of Selectmen, the FinCom, and obviously our town manager, this is the best way we think as a town to be able to fund it.
Okay.
Rather than having all this scatter stuff and
would-
people deciding on town meeting floor, "Oh, I don't want to fund it
Wait.
that way."
I guess I misunderstood when you started, when you said a single source. You mean we'll only propose one plan for funding, but it might actually be it might incorporate more
Correct.
than one
One-
source?
One plan, one plan.
Correct,
Yeah.
okay, I'm good with that.
I would agree that, I wanted to go to the voters. I want them to be able to make the call on it. So I would,
Mhm.
I would support,
Well,
bringing it forward.
And to go back on the CPA and the CPC, they ask in their application for a funding source. So since it's our article, we should,
Yes.
before they make a decision, you know, that could be an out for them to say, hey, listen, we can't vote on this right now because they don't even have a designated funded source, or they can't even make up their mind how this is going to be funded. So I think we should at least give them a funding source so they can say yes or no to it.
So,
I agree. I mean, I also think that we should go forward with it and, you know, and would advocate for bringing it to town meeting. As far as funding source, you know, my thought is that it should be some mix of existing existing monies in the CPA, and then borrow the majority of it. But I guess strikes me that we should put some money up front out of the existing CPA funds. I know from conversation earlier, Archie, you may have a different perspective, but.
CPA and/or free cash, and then bond some. But yes, basically, I'd like to put a deposit down in the kind of layman's terms, and then borrow the rest.
I'm more in favor of borrowing the whole thing, because I was thinking initially, the idea was that we were gonna, for several reasons. Initially, the idea was that we were gonna fix this in stages rather than now we're all in to fix the whole thing. So I don't want all of the tax burden to go on people right now who may or may not get any usage out of it. Maybe 10 years from now, or 11 years from now, or whatever, the final plan of what the building is gonna be used for, it might be then that we have I hope it doesn't go that long, having said that, but just, it might take a while for us to get the usage of the building up to speed, and I hate to think that the people now paid for it and the people 11 years from now didn't contribute. So that's why I kinda like to spread the payments out in that sense, And we don't know what's coming down we have, you know, I know, okay, for example, the bridge doesn't,
Had nothing to do with this.
doesn't nothing to do with CPA money, but I wouldn't wanna use, for example, free cash to do this because A, we got a very expensive bridge that we may have to be
Okay.
be paying for, which was an expense that, a huge capital expense that came out of nowhere. We did not have that on our, you know, on our
CIC
capital
Improvements Committee.
schedule. It was out of the blue, and so this is a huge expense that the town probably is gonna have to deal with, and,
Mm-hmm.
I don't wanna drain the free cash, for that reason. And we've got an expensive school coming down. A lot of things we wanna be able to, you know, minimize the impact on the taxpayers as much as possible, and the borrowing on, if we spread it out, the borrowing would be under $100,000 a year, which is less than the 1% on the present CPA assessment. So even if we lowered our CPA assessment, I'm not saying we would or want to or anything, but even if we did, a 1% assessment could still cover that amount. So that's a lot of reasons I'd rather borrow most of it. I could be convinced to take some of it from CPA, but I would not take any from free cash or any other.
And I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I'd
Okay.
agree with not, yeah.
We're all in agreement with that, so we don't have, I
Okay.
mean, I agree with that.
Right.
Okay, well, another point where I thought you were gonna go down, somebody needs to explain this to me, because they're a lot smarter at finance than I, but I hear it's a good time to borrow money. It's cheap to borrow money. I mean, I don't wanna sound like a used car salesman on Route 1, it's cheap to borrow money, but I didn't really, but it's cheap to borrow money now. And, it's a
You can't
good.
afford not to buy them.
Yeah. So, so that's another reason why I could probably be convinced, but if we can get something out of CPA, just something, and borrow the brunt of it, because it is a good time to do projects like this, because money is, obviously, and it's only, what I'm told, and I'm not I'm not a person who projects these things, but it's gonna only get more expensive to be borrowing money in the next 5 years.
I don't have someone, Angus, maybe you have, you know how much is in the historical part of the
Can they hear it?
CPA?
I did know, but I don't recall at the moment.
Do you know, Bob?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay.
But if I could just, this has been terrific. I want to kind of retroactively frame the conversation. The CPC, as you know, is continuing its consideration to October 17th. At the meeting that they had a couple of weeks ago, it was basically exactly what you said, Glenn, that you know, it's the Selectmen's proposal. They are, and they seem, you know, very favorable to the idea. But they did say on the financing, you know, they want to wait and see what's proposed. They're not looking to design the financing, so this is great. I did tell them at that meeting that I thought we would advance the ball at tonight's meeting. I did not think that we would get to a final proposal at tonight's meeting, and nor could we. You don't have something in front of you to put forward. So I said to them, it's probably going to be the October 15th Selectmen meeting where this board says this is the financing proposal. So I just want to kind of.
Well, how much was it? We have it in front of us. It was
Well, we did.
1.56 million, 1.6 million. If we take $200,000 out of the CPA money and we bond the rest.
Yes, I think that's something like that's the right answer. And
Sold.
Part of why I would,
Okay.
What I'd like to do, you know, in the CPC proposal, we set out a pretty ambitious timing proposal. Because as you know, part of the whole goal is to try to hit the, you know, to get this thing out to bid in February, March, to try to get the contractors before they're already committed. Because this is a small project in the scheme of things, and it's gonna be hard to get bids. And so to hit that timeline, we're gonna need to be incurring costs.
But also maybe, to Glenn's point, maybe for that reason, if we have at least a
pool of
small
money.
chunk
Exactly.
of cash available ahead of time so that we don't have to go through the whole bonding process. We will have enough money to get started.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
what,
So how much money do we need?
Well, and that's the analysis that we need to do in the next week and a half, is what do we need to get from here to.
Well, are we really gonna have it
What
by
do
then?
we can't figure that
But I
out
can
yet.
work with the, you know,
So, but how much is it gonna be?
oh,
Mike?
Mike's working on, solicitation for the designer selection process.
Right, so the estimate for the designer selection is $160,000. So if you have at least that much money, you know, then that means you can hire the designer and be able to pay them even before you go out to the bond. So, that'd be the initial part. So I would think 200,000 would be a good number to have.
See, you.
What
yeah,
did
it's
you
good.
have, what did you have, Rick, in your head?
I was thinking a little bit more than that, but.
I thought you did,
not-
so let's
yeah,
compromise.
Yeah, I mean,
250?
I was, I was thinking somewhere between 250 and 500,000, but 500,000 was definitely high end. So 250, I think would be, and that gives us some margin.
In case there are other things that we need to do.
Right, so that we don't get hung up waiting for bond before we can progress on anything.
And that needs to be part of the description to the to whomever that needs to know that. That's the reason why we did it this way, so we can get the bond rolling before we have the bond.
I say we make the decision right now.
Oh, me too, because there's not gonna be any more, so
Yeah.
why don't we say 300? What's another 50, and then we will save. Make a motion that we take,
No, I,
250?
250.
Well,
Okay.
Also, it would be good, I wish we did know what was in the historic preservation portion.
I can
Is it,
pull that out.
is it, yeah.
It's in the, yeah,
This makes it cleaner too, if we're just pulling it out of there and.
If historic preservation is less than that, then,
well,
yeah.
no, because then you can take it out of the general fund.
I know, but
Is that what
it's
it's for?
way cleaner this way.
I would agree.
And then going forward, the bond part would be paid out of the general each year? When it's-
Well, it would be, I think it
It's
has
taken
to,
off before.
I think comes off even
Comes
beforehand.
skimmed off, and then it gets all allocated to the other stuff. You don't allocate it, and then it
Is that
comes
right?
off.
I
I
think,
don't know, is that
yeah.
the way that works?
I think so. It's like, doesn't it come off like your quote
I
unquote
asked,
cherry sheet or
Angus,
whatever?
Angus knows, I asked him about that. He- I'm not sure, Glenn, but
I would expect it to be the opposite. I mean, I'd expect.
We have to pay it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
get it off by the state. We get the money.
We get the money, we have to
I
pay.
guess.
But it has to come out of the historical account.
No, it doesn't.
No.
No, it could come out
No.
of the general. Oh, I
Comes
was,
out of anything.
the reason why I wondered that was.
Whatever the motion
I
is.
thought it was important that we continue to
The monthly
put
payment?
funding going
mean, the yearly
forward in
payment?
the historical account.
Oh.
And there,
Yeah.
at only 10%.
How, it's the motion at
at
town
only
town meeting
10% of the
floor,
total.
how we
Is it 10%
appropriate.
for
Like the
each
one
of the
that comes out
dedicated
of
funds? And only 10%
available
of the
funds, you
total,
know that
even-
one?
even
Yeah.
the three- Even the full 3%, there wouldn't be enough.
wouldn't
in the
cover it,
historical.
yeah.
But we're gonna,
Yeah.
But you have to have the affordable and you have to
Well,
have
yeah.
the
Right.
open space separate, right?
so what, how much is in there?
So as of, taking into account everything, authorized through prior town meetings, the balance, in the historical would be 177,556, but, the, DPW and Library Board of Commissioners recently agreed to turn back the 17,000 that was earmarked for the ramp, because the library wants to put that into a 5-year plan instead. So if you add that 17 back in, which will be formalized at the next CPC meeting, that would be 194,556, so just short of 200,000. And of course, there is the undesignated, and there's one.
How much is in that one?
Over 1.5 million.
That also, does that reflect the current,
The matching stuff we just got from the state?
No, that's just through June 30th.
Yeah.
So we're getting more. So
Yeah.
I would, do we have to, I would say 150 from the historical, and then $100,000 for the undesignated. You want to keep a little bit in the historical, just in case somebody,
Well, but if something else historical came up, you could always fund that out of undesignated.
I was
That's
just trying to
true.
make, yeah.
That's true,
whatever.
too. That's true, too, yeah.
It's the same
It's-
thing.
it's-
I was just trying to
it-
keep the math easy.
Yeah.
150 from historic and $100,000 from undesignated. I was just trying to keep it easy, math easy, but because you're gonna have to take one from the other one anyway, so.
Right.
You wanna do it that way?
Yeah, I like Glenn's way. It's cleaner to
Just
for people to vote on it,
Just
yeah.
$150,000 from the historical preservation and $100,000 from undesignated, and the rest being bonded.
I will tell you that the Housing Authority article, which the CPC recommended at their last meeting, the funding split that they recommended would be to basically zero out the community housing reserve with the balance coming from undesignated. So if you applied the same thinking to this, you would zero out historical. And there was some sentiment, Rick, you were at the meeting, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think there was some sentiment with the CPC that if this level of investment is made in this project, that would basically be the CPC historical project for kind of.
A while.
Yeah, because it's a huge, investment. So
Okay, that's another way of,
The CPC would be
now you changed my
averse
mind.
to proposing that the full historic balance. And like I said, if there's another worthy historic project, that can always be funded out of undesignated. So
Okay.
you're not limiting it.
All right,
So, but, when does the money come in? Is it like, certified or free cash? When do we get our next allotment in? I can't remember. We do that at Springtown meeting, don't we?
yeah,
You can't do it.
No, I'm not asking to do
No,
it.
this
There's
is-
some money
we
out
ha-
there somewhere that's gonna fund this back in. So, well, my motion is then we use all the money in historic preservation, and any remaining money that's needed to get to 250 will
From
come
the
out of
undesignated.
undesignated, and the rest being bonded. That's my motion. And whatever
You second
amounts,
that, Rick,
whatever
or-
amounts in,
okay.
whatever amounts in there at the time of town meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who was the second on that?
Rick,
I guess.
I made you.
That's more than I'd hoped to achieve tonight, so that's
Well,
great.
let's go home then. I got some homemade macaroni and cheese waiting for me.
Didn't have to ask him twice.
What's that?
Going home.
Yep,
Have a good night, Bob. Thank you.
yep, thank you.
Okay, this next article, next item is to reopen the special town meeting warrant. I'm to blame, the arrows can come at me. In order to fund the tables and benches proposed as a bicentennial committee memorial at Mill Pond. And it came to pass that the initial funding of the bicentennial committee, looking at it more closely, didn't seem quite in line with the appropriation of the bicentennial to fund these items in that manner. Having said that, the bicentennial committee is probably going to have a substantial turnback of funds to the town after paying all the bills for the year. And there's still going to be a substantial amount of money that the committee is going to turn back to the town, which is wonderful. And my feeling, one way to do this is, okay, well, we have a special article to fund this item from free cash, and then this will actually, in turn, make the amount of money that the Bicentennial Committee is turning back to the town even larger. So I think it's a small amount of money compared to the estimated amounts that anyone correct me if I'm wrong, the committee was going to turn back approximately $30,000. Now they would turn back approximately $40,000, and we would take the 10 or so to fund the benches from free cash. So that's I hate opening the warrant, and the other two selectmen can decide if they want to set a precedent or not, but rules are made to be broken, and this one, we didn't know the whole story, so that's the way I look at it.
So my first,
I have a
I
major
have a
problem.
motion so I'll make my motion and you can turn it down. My first motion is
We
to.
can't discuss it first? Okay.
Well, I gotta make the
discuss it.
motion first. To reopen the warrant to add this item.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Okay,
Okay.
so discussion.
I don't want to open the warrants. And I'm one of the people that even when they were here, Bicentennial Committee, I'm the person who said, when the woman who, Vanessa Graham had the quilt, I said, oh, do you have any more money we could frame the quilt? And like an idiot, I'm going to say myself that I'm thinking that money could be spent for that, which now after thinking about it after a while, no, you can't, because that wasn't the motion on the floor, and I don't know, I was just maybe caught up in the thing. So, it can't be spent for the benches. I love the idea, but we can't open the warrants because why can't this just be done in the spring? Because now, we set a precedent, and I know other people who want to have more things to open the warrant. So if we're gonna open it, it needs to stay open for everybody. That's you know how I always do that thing about it has to be for everybody? But and just one time, even Casey said, close them, keep them closed, I understand that, and not have the not have the fall town meeting, just have it clean up stuff. So I don't, the premise and all that, but it's a procedural thing with me. That's my problem. And I was one of the idiots, not one of the idiots, because I was the only idiot, who said, oh, you have that, yeah, use that money. And I didn't think it through. We should have, when they came before us and say, hey, you guys, we just want to, and I even remember asking you guys, what did you want us to act on this tonight? You went, well, you don't have to act on anything. We just wanted to make sure we informed you. This was about the benches, maybe a month ago. At that time, I should have, and I didn't, just said, whoa, that's not an appropriate way of doing that. I didn't think about it. I don't know, I just didn't, and that was wrong by me, because I kind of probably gave you, because being a selectman, you said, okay, great. You know what I mean by that? So, I feel guilty at that time that I didn't say, this might not have been the proper funding mechanism, because the article did not say this. Because remember, I always go back as an example, years and years and years ago, when I think one of the motions was for a new police cruiser. Okay? And then we went out and bought a used police cruiser. And we went through heck about that for a long time. And I use it as an example that we have to go by the motion, especially when the funding is. And I didn't even do it myself this time. I just got caught up. And I'm going to apologize for that, because you did come in front of us, and just to keep us aware, and we seemed that it was okay. We didn't say it was okay, we just were ignorant. At least I'm going to say I was ignorant of it.
I'm somewhat unclear about why this is not an appropriate use of the funds. I mean, when the money was appropriated at the town meeting before the bicentennial celebration, there were no constraints put on it.
Well, maybe, let's talk that out. But maybe, I think there was, because I think even, and I might be wrong, this is just for talking it out. Because I think Joe asked, hey, do you have any budgets? What's it going to be spent on? And those type of things. And at no time, because, and now I'm going to say something probably, everybody's going, hey, maybe that time capsule isn't, if these benches aren't, why is a time capsule?
When we presented.
And I'm not saying,
Time capsule is on the,
original.
yes.
Okay, good. So, good. I'm for it. I'm for it.
No, it's right here.
Yeah, but I'm for it. So it wasn't okay, so maybe, just for talking out premises, when you say is it or not, it kind of wasn't, hey, if we have some money left over, let's do some good things in memorializing the bicentennial by doing this, because it is. That's
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think that, when we presented that budget, I thought we made it clear, maybe we didn't, that was a preliminary budget, that we were not giving you an exact breakdown of everything we
That's fair.
thought to do, nor was it an exact breakdown of what it was going to cost. And in fact, clearly, we didn't spend nearly as much money as we thought we were going to on some of the things on that budget. So it was never our intention to say, this is exactly what we're gonna do and we're not going to change anything. It was our intention to either drop things if it was not possible to do what we intended to do, or substitute. This particular item really came up in our discussions at the Bicentennial Committee as an answer to the problem that we had, because people were very interested in some sort of a service project. There was a lot of interest in that. And when we couldn't come up with a particular service project, as in people are gonna go out and cut down trees or whatever the service project was, this idea came up just spontaneously because someone had seen some benches at Seabrook that were put up in the public park or someplace around there. And Salisbury, I'm sorry. The same benches, I think, it's the same company. Anyway, they were very attractive, and they really enhanced the beach area there. And so that looked like a worthwhile project. And we discussed the fact that it wasn't per se a service project, as in people come out and clean up the river on Earth Day and stuff like that. So it was really not our intention to add a project. It was sort of a lateral move to try to come up with something that we could do that would benefit the community to memorialize the bicentennial. So I'm not as sure as you are that this really doesn't fall into the category of what we had intended to do, but I understand your point of view.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
You know, in reviewing my matter with town council and the town accountant, it's really not about the initial motion or the budget that was presented. It's really about the statute. The statute that authorized the creation of the committee and authorized the creation of the funds that holds the money. And funds can be expended for the purposes of celebration or special event. So, between myself, town council, town accountant, none of us feel that this, it's not about the merits of the project. That's not what it's about.
No, not at all.
It's just, when the town accountant raises a concern to me, and I look at it and I say, it's just people trying to do their job and adhere to Mass General law. That's all that's happening.
Yeah, I agree with that logic, and I guess I'm looking at this and thinking that even if we funded it, even if we reopened the warrant and funded it at special town meeting, and there's a side of me that wonders, is this something that's appropriate for special town meeting, anything? Is this an unexpected, something that is sort of an unexpected event that needs to be done right now and hence has to go to special town meeting? Even if we did reopen the warrant and funded it through free cash, it probably wouldn't be usable until next spring. And I guess I'd prefer to see something like this voted on by town meeting where we're gonna have the highest participation. And, I'm very supportive. I think it's a great idea. I just don't really feel that this is the right way to fund it.
Well, the right time to fund it.
Right time and way to fund it, out of free cash at a special town meeting.
Oh, okay.
And
are we bent on doing it now? Because I think you're gonna get just as much support and then have it a lot cleaner and we don't have to open it up and then everybody says, you did it for them, we have these articles we want, and then it becomes that.
The reason we wanted to do it now is because we have a price which is reasonable. And we have no way of knowing what the price will be in July, which is the first we could do anything about ordering the
Well, no,
because also, I'm not sure that the Bicentennial Committee will still be a
around?
committee in July, so it would just be a town project at that.
Well, if we put it on the special town meeting at our annual town meeting, you could spend the money the next day. It's only if it's an article for the annual town meeting that you can't spend it until July 1st.
Well, it's not important, and I understand that. I mean,
It's
the
months.
idea-
I mean,
the
it's
idea-
April-
the
it's
idea
April
was
rather than
to
July.
have them in place for spring of 2020 for people to use. There's a lot of prep work that has to get done, and they have to be ordered, and they have to be installed. And so it's going to be in the middle of the summer if we wait until the springtime meeting anyway, by the time we go through all those hurdles. And I really don't know that the bicentennial committee will, I mean,
Doesn't
what
mean you can't.
happens to a committee like the bicentennial committee when our work is done? Does it just sort of ride off into the sunset?
What you do is you just lean back and you wait for the tricentennial.
Oh, I see. No, I mean, I really don't know what happens to an ad hoc committee when the.
I mean, it goes away. I mean, when the function's done,
But is there an official, this committee no
What do we
longer
do?
exists?
No,
or is
it just
sort of-
doesn't get reappointed,
We're
yeah.
fairly certain it's not off with their heads.
but we
No, I
can
mean,
still bring,
we're not gonna continue to meet,
no,
Right.
but we can still bring the mantra forward.
yeah.
You understand, you understand the.
No, I understand, I do.
That's the
I-
problem.
it's-
I forgot about the statue. I was told about the statue too. That's the thing that's killing us. But then we have to open it up, back up to everybody, and I think you're one of the people that chastises for doing stuff like this.
No, you are right, and I do appreciate the fact that we have stopped putting everything but the kitchen sink on the.
Yeah.
I know, I
on
know.
the fall town meeting warrant. I agree with that. I'm not going to
Mhm.
disagree with that. That's very important.
I have a question for the town manager. In the preliminary budgets that we distributed to the selectmen a year and a half ago, there was an amount, maybe Casey knows exactly what it was, for a community service project. And it was approved. It wasn't a small amount. What is it, Dave?
Let me find out.
3,000 for a community service day.
That sounds right.
Community, yeah, service day.
Yeah,
And it's a service day, I mean,
But you could have a service, you could have a service day because we're still in the bicentennial, but then you'd have to have, get the Boy Scouts, get everybody down there, open space, Mill Pond Committee, clear the spots, everybody did service day, clean up the river, do this, and part of that is putting up new things, but that's not gonna be $3,000.
You're right. Well,
Okay,
it's up to you.
let's think, let's think about it. Thank you.
You know, I was talking, had
No,
another
we have to
conversation.
vote on it right now, we can't think about it.
Archie, your mic is out.
So, I was just curious, somebody pointed out to me that we might run into a problem with the concrete, we talked about concrete pads down, I'm trying to recall where we went the last meeting. Putting the, putting the benches or the picnic table on concrete pads down close to the water. How
Yeah, there's that whole process, just forget about the money, you're gonna have to go through Concom and all that, that's gonna take forever.
That's been done. This is why the momentum, if it could possibly be kept going, by being able to send a deposit in now, instead of storing these boxes, which are huge and very, very heavy, we could anticipate their arrival in March. By that time, the DPW would have time, depending on how deep the frost is, et cetera, between now and then, to get those slabs poured. And when the benches arrive, the company that we're buying the benches from is being paid an extra amount to install them. And they will drill down into the concrete, place the hardware, assemble the benches and the tables, and install them. And that will all be done in early April, and then those benches will be available for the entire season next year. If we wait till annual town meeting, I suspect we're gonna lose a year.
Well, it'd be special, there would be, funds are available immediately, so if the same if the same timeline, you'd be.
I'm not,
th-
I'm
you'd
not
be-
concerned about the funds, but the timeline would change.
No.
I mean, it takes.
Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say it would be fall of next
right.
year, which is a year from here, yeah.
Just to clarify that, there was a positive meeting with the Concom in terms of they expressed,
Yep.
support for this idea, but
Yep.
the process isn't done. There's still gotta be filings and approvals.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So isn't, I was just curious about the whole issue of, putting what is sort of like a foundation, it's a slab, but, down close to the water, and what, from a Concom standpoint.
I was at the Concom meeting, so I will tell
Yeah,
you what.
yeah,
the
oh,
truth
okay,
was.
yeah.
Currently at Mill Pond, there are some piles of riprap and broken cinder block
Yep.
where the other concrete tables were situated
Yep.
that they had to remove because they were dangerous. The rebarb was showing
Yep,
through.
yep.
And that's where the proposal was to put the new foundations.
Yeah.
And the Mill Pond Committee was supposed to have filed a request for applicability or something like that. Request for determination, and they haven't done that yet. So the Concom hasn't had anything to look
Yeah.
at. But at the meeting with the Concom, Ryan Goodwin presented a plot plan
Yeah.
of where he would propose to put these, exactly where the existing
Yep,
things
okay.
were. And the people on the Conservation Commission were favorably disposed to
Yeah.
it, which does not say they accepted it, because they do need their application and
Right,
whatever.
right.
But we also checked with Essex Greenbelt to make sure that they didn't have some sort of
Yeah, I remember
an
you
interest
mentioned
in
that.
that.
Yeah, we talked about
And they
that,
said
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And we also talked about ADA compliance.
Yep.
And so that much work has been done, in addition to getting cost estimates and whatever for the benches and the installation. So what remains to be done at this point is to get the ultimate permission from the Conservation Commission, or not, depending on what happens, and to order the benches for delivery in the spring, but that would lock in the price that we have now. If we don't lock in the price that we have now, then it'll be different in the spring, which is neither here nor there. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
just be different. So we don't know what to tell you
Yeah,
for a
okay.
price.
5% probably, or 7%, or whatever.
I don't know if they come from China or not, but.
Hopefully it's good American cast iron.
Good luck.
I just don't know, no.
Okay,
The motion on the floor.
is nothing to do about the project. This has to do with opening up the warrant, because I don't want it to feel that if I say no to open up the project, that I'm negative to the project. Because I don't want to open up the project. I don't want to open up the warrants, because
Okay, so.
we have to, 1 year.
I know,
I think we did it.
Okay. But there's a vote.
Okay. So,
All in favor of opening up the warrant to deal with this item? Opposed?
Okay, that's cool. Everything's taking longer than, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
this will fly at Springtown meeting now.
No, it will fly, definitely. Okay, review,
Where are we now?
review of draft.
Okay.
Yeah. Review of draft warrants. Thank you.
I just start playing.
Apparently it's a disease.
I can't help it, I love to pinch my fingers.
Hey, whatever. Whatever you do at home stays at home. The heck? You're on, just so you know, you're on camera and, speaker. So what are we doing, guys? We just reviewing them? We're not saying yes or no to them?
Correct.
And Article 8 obviously was an updated one, that there's some new numbers there.
Yep.
Okay,
Reflects the language I received last week from the CPC.
just as a FYI, I like the fact that they came in and talked to us about these before we, in tonight, Wayne and,
Good.
it seemed like, we probably do it all the time, but
We had,
I liked it.
we knew, even though it was a relatively short warrant, big questions before you. And so, you know, working with Chairman Archibald, we wanted to spread out the information and not try to, you know, wait for the next meeting and overload
Gonna be a
it with lots
bloodbath.
of presentations. So that was part of the idea, going out of that.
Mhm.
Just as we've done with FinCom. The FinCom has reviewed the same articles that you reviewed, and we'll review others at the next meeting, week
Mhm.
Tuesday.
And voted to pass all the ones that we reviewed, which was the first set we discussed.
Mhm.
Is there any that we wanna, just, that we feel comfortable now, voting on now, so we don't have to?
No, let's just do them all at one time.
Well, I think one thing I would ask the board, since you have this in front of you, is if there's other article representatives specifically for the CPC proposals, would you like me to arrange for the rep from the Housing Authority for that proposal? Would you like a rep from the Historical Commission for the Julian Steele proposal and or Carr Post?
No, I got, well, personally, these,
Which one?
Julian Steele thing, I feel, we heard about that, I feel pretty good about that.
I feel great, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, where's that money gonna come? What is it, is that gonna be competing, historic? Where?
Yeah, I'll net out that $600.
Okay. I don't want people to think that we're trying to.
Yeah.
Well, the
Can't spend the
car
same dollar
post gets
twice.
one less electrical outlet.
Mhm.
We could try, but it won't work.
Do, a few things that I see, and I'm not gonna say problematic at special town meeting, but, I would tell Wayne, definitely bring his chainsaw, because he's gonna have a fight on that one. On the tree one. But, these bathrooms at the housing authority and stuff, is this gonna be a hard thing for people to understand, with the funding and this and the state and the matching and who's doing it, why are we doing this, and, you know what I mean by that? It might be, so, to your question, it might be good for somebody to come in, just to talk to us in the questions, and that would be a good way of maybe some people hearing about it, and maybe just the beginning
Also,
of an education about
They
it.
get practice in talking about it.
Yeah.
They're gonna need practice.
I
Don't you
don't know,
think?
Forbes, if you wanna share any observations from the discussion of the FinCom, but, you know, that was one where.
Did they talk to you, Forbes?
Sorry, I was texting, so can you?
Is the housing authority with the the kitchens and the bathroom, that article, the CPC article with the housing authority?
About the allocation or the benefit from it, I think.
Kind of it's just the whole thing, it just,
The learning curve, and so I thought maybe if you could share what came out of their presentation of the FinCom, where the committee started, where it ended. and-
because I think that's a hard one to
There is a
get,
learning curve on that
yeah.
proposal, and you know, specifically the fund match that's referenced in the CPC proposal.
Mhm. I see that to be very,
So,
And the match is like, the match may not even happen, the match is like.
so Angus asked if, I made a comment, I'm not sure what you heard. I made a comment, it was nice to have the people come in and talk to us about the articles tonight.
Yes.
Generally, we don't get that in this timely manner.
Yep.
And I said, I like that, and then Angus mentioned, well, is there anybody else who'd you like to come in? And he mentioned a couple articles, and that article with the housing authority, I said, you know what, that might be a good idea, because it's just, it's confusing to me, and I see that to be very confusing to people on town meeting floor. It's hard to get your hands around it.
Yes, and one of the questions that we had was about the match and how that played in, so that it's a one-to-one, match.
I don't know.
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's fine, no problem. So.
One of the questions they had was the match.
The takeaway, the high-level takeaway from the finance committee meeting is one thing that we were particularly pleased with is that there's a one-to-one match, but that's predicated on the fact that there needs to be a commitment from the town toward the project, so that the grant application is then approved and you get that match. So that basically the town needs to sort of take the first step in that dance, basically.
And then the money's there.
Yes, yes, and so our understanding from the explanation that was provided is that it's a large lump sum grant that decreases as the number of applicants increase or the number of proposals are accepted. So basically, the longer you go down the road, the amount of funds that become available decrease. So it does behoove us to move on this expeditiously, because it gives us the best chance of getting the largest amount in terms of the grant.
Okay.
It was also represented, as you saw in the written materials from the Housing Authority, that if they don't get the grant, they will withdraw the article.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, neither did I know.
Yes.
Did they say that?
Yes.
Oh,
they
so
did.
there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
The town meeting motion was favorable. They said if they don't get the matching grant, which they have a high degree of confidence they will get, if they don't get it, their intent would be to withdraw it and then come back with a lesser amount proposed for the future.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Terrific.
Okay, that's a
And
big difference.
One last, this is a small thing, but it is different, I think, than at least in my last 2 years with the finance committee. If once the article gets set up, the sunset clause that they're asking for is a 5-year window because of the rolling nature and the complexity of the reconstruction, the permitting and everything else.
And
That,
the bidding as well
and
is
the-
subject to tremendous, a lot of
Stringent,
specifications.
okay.
So I don't think we've done anything longer than 3, but no one could think of a reason why it couldn't be longer if that process required that.
Mm-mm.
And I think those are the highlights.
Did
I
we-
mean, we felt it was a worthy project.
Did we
Good.
know that it needed to be 5 years then? Is that what's going to be in the article, the 5-year sunset?
Well, that's up to the Board of Selectmen.
But do we have information that tells us that it needs to be that long, or, because I hadn't.
No, I'm just relaying to you information from the public meeting where we
Okay.
kind of covered that with them. We
Okay,
said,
okay.
well, typically it's 3 years, and then she explained the bidding process and sort of the complexities there, and
Yeah.
said, we think it should be 5, and we
Okay.
felt like that was an
Actually,
acceptable.
my recollection for us was
Yep.
that she thought it could be 22 or 23, but then I think it was Jim Sperlakis said, well, if it might, like, rather than hemming them in, it was actually a committee member who suggested going to 5, just to acknowledge that even though she thinks it could be 2 or 3, it could flip, and he didn't want to.
I think that's correct. In other words, it's longer than 3 years, and the feeling was that
Gives
it,
a little breathing room.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think to your point, I think it would be terrific if Tracy is available to come to the next meeting.
Why not?
In terms of advancing the topic, understanding what's proposed.
Yeah, this is a big knot.
Okay, I'm done with reviewing them if you,
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions other than that. Thank you. I'd make a motion that we recommend the Middle Street Bridge type, the 2 that they had up there the other day, the one with the sidewalk.
I'd second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sidewalk.
I wanted to get through that one quick.
Yeah.
Of the 2 they had up on that.
Yeah, so
Thing.
it's actually option 2, I think.
Oh, right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it was. I think, yeah.
Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Working Group update.
Yeah, so I'll just be real quick about that. So we met last Tuesday.
Thanks, Forbes.
Thank you.
See ya. We met last Tuesday with a representative from Horsley Witten, who is the consultant that the MVP committee, or the core team chose. And just talked a little bit about strategy, how to move forward. And I don't have exact dates for things yet. We don't have exact dates for things yet, but there will be a series of meetings, interviews with specific people who have already, who we've already all approached, who are likely to have information relevant to understanding our climate risks. We'll be preparing a survey for residents of the town to respond to, who hopefully will get a good response to that, so that we understand where people feel their own vulnerabilities are relative to things that might happen, and there'll be background that explains the types of things to consider. Because we're just trying to understand, where are the risks in town? There will be a total of about between 6 and 8 hours in either 1 or 2 meetings, with a sort of by invitation group of somewhere in the range of 45 to 50 people total. People who we believe will have substantial input to understanding our risks and also understanding what we might do to address some of those risks. The whole process needs to be done.
Smooth as you thought? I mean,
Excuse me?
It's going smooth so far?
Yeah, and Horsley Witten has done this with another number of other communities already, has gone through this process. It is a predefined process by the state, the state program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it's really just helping you kind of direct your thoughts in the right direction, or helping us direct our thoughts in the right direction, so we understand where issues might be, and issues
And
in
be
each
prepared
community
for
are gonna
them.
be unique to that community.
Okay. Cool. When do you think it'll be finished?
Well, it needs to be completed by the end of the fiscal year, by June 30th. And so we'll probably have a meeting in early, actually, did we settle on early November? You know what, I don't.
But you
dates
don't
move
see
around
any
a little
stumbling
bit.
blocks that you can't finish, that it won't be
No,
done?
no, we'll get there. We'll do it okay. I think in the end, we're not gonna have a tremendous amount of fat in the schedule, but I think we're okay without a problem.
Good. Okay. Does anybody have these appointments in front of them? I'm looking for them.
I'm looking at
So I can't
Oh, I
find.
handed them out before that.
Yeah,
Oh, they're separate?
And I
Yeah.
have an extra copy right here.
I can't find them for the life of me. Okay, thank you. So rather than reading everybody's name,
We did not do this, is that the problem? Okay.
yeah, so I make a motion that we appoint,
Let's make, put Leanne, mention Leanne as the director of that,
oh, okay. Make a motion that Leanne Delp is the Emergency Management Director. Time expiring 6/15/2020.
second.
following other people.
Well, we want to do that one, and then we'll,
All in favor?
All in favor?
aye. I make a motion that,
We could just list off all of our other names, really, right?
well, just say the memo that was received by the town manager. Memo that was dated Monday, September 30th, dealing with all the emergency management appointments that I would, how do you want to do this? No, because there's other, yeah, make a motion that I nominate the people that are listed on the document from the town manager dated Monday, September 30th, 2019.
With the subject EMA and ADA appointment list.
Perfect, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the
Yeah.
ADA
Sorry about
coordinators,
that.
we have to make a separate.
No, you don't need to.
But you didn't mention.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, you did?
Rick did.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick bailed me out.
Yeah, and that just,
With the sub-
that results in, close to the building inspector and Rose, deputy director of the ADA,
Okay. Make a motion to accept the minutes of September 16th, 2019, September 9th, 2019, and January 30th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 10 is just informational, as you know, it was objective of the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen that the planning board review and update its fees. They've done
Okay, make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Hmm?
Oh, fall meetings,
Is there anything there?
future agendas?
Oh, you know what? This might be it. Is this the proper time to bring up the cyber stuff?
Sure.
The what stuff?
Okay, so over the weekend, I was at somebody's, whatever, I was contacted by a couple of people that weren't on our town website because of the town-wide yard sale, and they thought if they hit on the open space committee link that was on our thing, that they would get a better map of West Newbury, so a better understanding of where all these yard sales were. When they hit on that link, they got malware that infiltrated their thing. I guess this was a dead link that Open Space used to use, but it was still on our thing. So then it raises the question, I talked to Angus this morning, it was on the West Newbury News Facebook thing too, which is not a town-authorized Facebook page. People had questions about it. So I talked to Angus this morning about it, he talked to Jake, he took care of that, but then it's the larger question of, I think, about, it just brought into, we've had conversations where boards and committees, when they're using their own emails, or they're, like when they're having, like the Concom for one thing, when they were taking applications in and they were just setting up emails and stuff like that. I think we need to have some type of policy or something that, first of all, to make, everything needs to be, nobody can have their own rogue, if it's gonna be anything part of our town or a town function board of committee or something like that, it has to be within the town. I know it's gonna probably cost more money.
It costs a lot of money.
But we have to do it, because if you're gonna have these people link things into our town, who knows? Everybody watched that program probably, or heard about that program where they have people that are holding little towns and hospitals and stuff hostage with the data and all that kind of stuff. We all say it's never gonna happen to us until it happens to us. This is a good example, maybe a wake-up call. I'm not saying that Jake has secured Angus, that we are dealing with everything, but we can't deal with other things that are, I mean, Angus hit on it when he was talking to me and he couldn't get out of it, right? It took a little bit, but.
No, you're exactly right. It crashed my browser, and I had to, Jake boarded it, and he was able to get me out of it. But in the meantime, I had a laptop, so I was able to continue to work. But basically, what's ironic is I wouldn't have ever clicked on that link but for the Facebook post, which, and I'm probably not the only one. It was very foolish, and I've, cautioned staff in the past, don't click on links that are suspect. And
Of course, when it's a link on your own,
Right.
on your own organization's page,
So,
you don't.
I don't even know what,
Within a couple of minutes of it bringing to my attention, but yeah, it was definitely a malicious link.
so I don't even know what the question is, because I don't think I'm smart enough to ask the proper question, but I think we're pretty protected with town-wide stuff.
We are, but a lot of this stuff is user, it's getting people trained and making sure that people don't, click suspicious links that could create a, wormhole into the system. But yeah, I mean, as we talked about, I think we're doing everything we can in terms of the regular backups and data security, but that's not to say there's no exposure there.
But I guess my understanding is that what had happened was that the open space had their own website that they just created and
Yep.
did their own, and they put links on it.
Yep.
Well, one of those links became a dead link, meaning the person who had that link before just gave it up, never bothered, which happens all the time. And someone who was malicious said, "Oh, that's a dead link. I'm going to take over that link," and now anyone who clicks on it goes to my malware. And it just kind of highlights is that, well, nobody in our IT has done anything with that particular website. And the question is, should town departments have separate websites? Or should we just say, no? I mean, or they have to be vetted by us or whatever. I mean,
Yes.
Obviously, the library does. I don't know if Jake does the library.
The police.
The police do, but maybe they should all be brought under an umbrella.
Well, there's also an issue of purging or, reviewing and purging is necessary a website periodically so that you don't end up with links that.
I understand that, but it was,
yeah.
But if we don't have any control over the, if
But no,
everybody's,
no, I understand that, but
Yeah,
even
yeah.
on the town's website, are we absolutely certain that there are?
Well, on the town's website, I have advocated that we don't put in links. I get requests for people to put in links, oh, I have this public service all the time, and I
or like the,
don't do it.
like, give me an example, like the
the-
athletic club or something like that, you put a
No,
link in?
More likely, what was it?
Garden
was
club?
it- No.
Mass Audubon, Nature Conservancy.
Mass Audubon,
East
Nature
Coast
Committee,
Greenway.
East Coast Greenway, you know,
People, we
some-
definitely don't, forget about our own library or whatever. People, we definitely don't have any,
Right.
and then that just
it's-
perpetuates, now somebody could have this and this and this and this and this and that down the line.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
guess, so I, as far as, when.
Greenbelt,
When
probably?
people call me and say, oh, I have this great thing for kids, it's a great website, I wanna give it out to towns, I just don't allow it. When they write me,
Yeah,
so I don't, it never goes any further than that.
That's
I don't even
probably
respond to
a
them.
good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a good thing.
I think, part of what it also speaks to is that we have a very decentralized management structure on the website. This idea of every department, every committee, board, commission, having a webmaster, that has some innumerable number of people who have permissions. They might only have permissions to one page of the overall site.
But that gives you a portal for somebody to do bad things if that particular thing's not protected properly.
Right, so one thing that's interesting, there's a form that, I don't know when this was developed some years ago, but Mike and I, like you'll remember this, is the Mill Pond Committee very dutifully, right after the first of the fiscal year, submitted a form to Mike that set out who's the person responsible for taking their minutes, getting their minutes to Mike, who's responsible for updating their webpage. And I saw it, I said, geez, I've never seen this form before, have all the other committees done this? And they haven't, so someone put in place a form some years ago, and it was a good idea.
But nobody's followed through with it.
That's the issue with staffing, unless we get fully staffed to get that done. But if we are gonna keep a decentralized management structure on the webpage, I would at least like to have a definitive list of who has permissions.
Right.
And then and part of that, I would think, would be they would have to come to a training, because it's very tough. As you know, over the years, the training of people on the website has been one-on-one, and that's very time-intensive for staff, and you don't have an assurance that everyone's getting the same training. Wouldn't it be so much better if everybody, kind of early in the fiscal year, who was a designated web editor, came to a training? It wouldn't be one night, you could offer it twice, so that people don't get frozen out because they can't make a particular date. But that would be a much better way to have a much more professional training, and you could make sure that the people who do have permissions are, cautioned on these things. Because right now, it's a number of people who have editor permissions to one or more pages on the site. And it's more all the time. We've added 2 new pages just in the last.
The tree one, right, the tree?
One and the MVP. And I'm not saying that those are particular issues, but it multiplies.
So I don't mean to bring this up to make more work for you, but obviously it's something that was brought to my attention and then obviously brought to your attention.
Very important.
And then it just puts the red.
Mark about this too, a couple of weeks ago. He talked to me about cybersecurity and where we do what we need to do on that.
Okay. So I'm not sure where we need to go or what we need to go, but it could be, if we need to upgrade it, we're gonna start our budgeting process for next year soon. So I think this is something that everybody can understand, and if we need more money somewhere.
Okay, but, so you've got, I don't know, a dozen people on the Mill Pond Committee? And at $7 a pop per month?
Well, no, it's 8, I think, but it's,
Okay,
it was a stupid thing by me, sorry. But, no, but you would have to have one, you'd have to have one.
No, that's to have an email account, it's something like $7 a pop, a
Yeah.
person per month.
No, it's just under $100 a year, it's $8 a month per email account. And one of the issues that some committees have done is they have a single email address for the committee. And Mike and I really haven't talked much about this, but I've had concerns about open meeting implications of that.
Because everybody's looking at the same one, so you really don't have any trail. Interesting. So is it 7 months, is it 7 dollars a person because we don't have many? What if we really have a lot? Does that price go down, or do you have a blanket thing? Do you know what I mean by that? Because I don't know the answer, but.
There's definitely a cost issue. One thing I've focused on in the last couple of months is looking at the utilization of different email accounts, and I've seen a number of accounts that have been set up over the years that had zero or next to no utilization. So I've, contacted the appropriate people and said, it looks to me like this hasn't been used in the last 6 months. Do we really need this? They've said no. So we've actually trimmed the number of email accounts in the last couple of months.
Oh.
And when one is added, for instance, for the tree committee, I really try to offset that with one, that's a low utilization.
To net zero.
Or redundant. For instance, we have an employee that, has a committee email account that only that employee checks and has a, first initial, last name. But that employee is the only person checking both of those. So to me, that's redundant. We should consolidate that. So these are all things that we can get, there's definitely opportunity to continue to improve. I think it would be a very relevant issue for a future meeting, probably not before town meeting because we got a lot of other things. But I think, as you said, Glenn, leading up to maybe in November, right near the kickoff of the budget. And I think Mike's point about library and public safety having different sites altogether is a real issue. Not to say it's a problem or something that has to change, but it's something we got to look at and be intentional about. One little example is we have a terrific system within this building of sharing information on the room utilization. We use the Outlook, and Annie and Mike and Teresa and myself and everyone has real-time access to when the rooms are booked. But public safety doesn't because they don't have a town email account. So I was just talking with Annie this morning about rather than her printing calendars and giving them to the chiefs, wouldn't it be better if they could just have the same real-time access that we have in this building? So there's a bunch of issues that would just make us that much more efficient or reduce our vulnerability.
Okay. Sounds good. Hopefully there isn't anything else.
With the new hire starting in a few weeks, part of that person's responsibilities will be maintaining the website, which is going to be, so that.
The first thing, Angus, the absolute first thing to do is who's on committee A, who's in charge of, who's the webmaster on?
Yeah, and we can get that all.
The list is probably gets changed every year or whatever.
But that form you had every year is easy.
They all, all the committees, boards, and commissions should, complete that form, but.
So if we do meet, if we include that as an agenda item on a regular meeting, I would think we'd want to have Jake or somebody here we need somebody who's IT savvy.
Yes.
As much as possible.
To be able to.
And security, not just IT, but security savvy.
Yeah, and Jake, can definitely, I can work with him to find the time, but he, just so everyone's clear, and I think this board's clear, but he doesn't have anything to do with the website. It's helpful in this case, but it's totally outside his scope, so that's a different vendor.
Okay.
He's a great resource.
Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Angus, are we gonna do any, are we done with the,
Executive session?
executive session stuff?
Oh, yeah, well, we adjourned earlier, and we didn't adjourn to reconvene, but I guess that's up to you.
Well, what did you wanna do about the agricultural thing and stuff?
That was in the packet.
The MOU and the PNS.
The PNS, whatever.
When do we need to have it done?
I think they're buying it now, aren't they? I don't think there's any, actually, you could probably discuss it in an open meeting in the sense of the purchase and sale is fine as it is.
That's what they needed anyway, right?
Yeah, that's what they need.
I gotta be on the road by 5, so it's 10 past.
I always just get warmed up, Glenn. God.
Well, I made a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Sounds like there's nothing that we absolutely
Okay,
have to talk about.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.